Welcome everybody to Game Changers Up to Speed, a little passion project of mine, no pun intended, that I've been in the works for main event. You know, there was the success of the open qualifiers, and despite them not really getting the most visibility, I wanted to make sure that we could convey the teams and the storylines for these amazing 8 teams that are about to compete in main event too. But I'm not the only one with opinions and knowledge in this scene, so I brought some veterans that have been around for a while, whether, you know, journaling or playing. So I want to go down the line and give everybody the chance to introduce themselves. But first, obviously, my name is Zobi. I am a Valorant commentator. I guess that's really all I can say. Yeah. I'll hand it off to KP. Yours is probably going to be a lot more interesting than mine, I would hope.
Just, no one's more interesting than another person. We're all amazing here. But yo, what's going on, guys? It's KP, former professional IGL for Shopify Rebellion GC, and avid Valorant competitor. And what else? Penguin,
Extraordinaire.
Penguin extraordinaire. We'll end it at that.
My name is Keg. I've been involved with the Game Changers scene since pretty much the beginning. I really enjoy it, and I've been able to find a lot of love for the scene through it.
I'm Callie. I've been following Game Changers, I think, since it started, but I started covering it in 2021 under GC Report, as it was known back then. I switched it to Emphasis this year. I've been pretty happy with what I've been able to do on the print side, and now we're doing a lot more video stuff. So hope you get used to my face, and hopefully it's not too ugly.
No,
y'all
it
guys.
couldn't be.
Never. All of us are stunning individuals. Y'all had such great intros. I guess I should expand mine. Yeah, I've been covering. My first event ever actually was Game Changers. Technically, it was Crescent Cup, which was a collegiate marginalized gender event. That was in like August, almost 2 years ago now. And that's been my primary scene since, although obviously expanding into collegiate. But let's get into the content. Let's get into main event number 2, which is what you all are here for. All right. So, as we know, main event number 2 is coming up, and main events are the opportunity to collect main event points. These are important for qualifying towards the Game Changers Championship later this year. Whoever wins main event number 3 directly qualifies, and then main event points are used to determine who will be that second North American seed. So we have the live points currently, both circuit points and main event points from Radiant as of the beginning of this month. And as you can see, on the right, those are main event points. Circuit points are just what is used during the open qualifiers to determine who qualifies for the main event. So you'll also get to see the teams that are competing in main event 2 here in the next week. But it kind of helps us set the scene to see kind of where teams are lying and what the stakes are coming up for this next main event. Anybody else want to point anything out here? I mean, the only thing I notice is that, right, the boys, I believe they rebranded to Kinetic. Infinity X really isn't competing. I think they rebranded to another team name, but they haven't gotten as far since. SNG and YFPX. I'm wondering if that is SNG that became YFPX. I think that YFPX is now Solstice. So they're actually tied because there's a bunch of org changes.
I feel like we could just take like a Expo marker and just draw a bunch of different lines across the different ones about where one team bounces towards the other. Titles change, the name changes. It's all the same teams at the end of the day.
Yeah, I feel like. Oh, sorry. I was going to say that we might as well just put, instead of putting the names of the teams, we might as well just put the 5 players, because that's really what the points belong to.
That is true.
100%.
I did learn that the way it works is if it's an organization like Shopify Rebellion or FlyQuest Red, the points are owned by the organization. But if it's a free agent team, then the points are owned, like you said, by the core players, which we'll touch in a little bit later, because that's important when discussing one of the teams that's actually pretty high up here on the main event points.
Yeah, I think the core is designated as 3 or more, right?
Yes, 3 is the minimum.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I do think we kind of got a glimpse, obviously, from that point sheet about the teams that are competing in main event number 2, but we want to take a little bit deeper of a dive to introducing these squads, and the players that are competing for each team, and lets you start getting to know them a little bit more. So we're just going to go basically down that list in order of seeding, introducing you to these teams. So, Keg, I'm going to hand it off to you to introduce our first
Yes.
team.
Yes, our first team we have right here. The notes, are they open? No, it's going to be Passion Project. Yeah, Passion Project's going to be an interesting team. They're one of those teams that I feel like can always just about make it. All these players have had top level results. They've made it to LANs, they've made it to a variety of Game Changers events, and honestly, they're just a part of the blender that is Game Changers North America, where you pick apart different pieces of players and mix them together and see what finally clicks. So I do enjoy all these players, but I'm definitely curious to know everyone else's thoughts.
For me, this team, right, is number one. If you look at last season, it's like DSG complexity, like you said, it's teams that were previously signed, and amidst a bunch of orgs kind of settling out, this team came into existence. I also want to say, I think some of these players competed in that FlyQuest like Thunderdome when that was originally like the new roster that was trying to form, and they liked some of the chemistry coming out of it, so that was kind of cool. They qualified back in the first open qualifier for main event by winning it as well. Shopify Rebellion wasn't competing because they were getting ready for Red Bull Instalock, and they took that opportunity to go all the way. And what was interesting to me pertaining to that is that they really had a bunch of downtime, right? They weren't necessarily having to do anything in the meantime. They didn't have to compete in any additional qualifiers. They just had to sit back, and they didn't just do nothing, which is what I actually want to showcase here next. I'll go ahead and center that for you guys a little bit. Is that they took the time to compete in Funhaver events. You can see they competed in both Revival and Slugfest. And I actually had that on the little stat sheets when we had the little team overview, that they had like a 1.15 KDA or KD, I think. So they took the opportunity, right, to take, I guess, the Shopify approach, which is consistently compete in co-ed. I kind of like paralleling it to like anime characters when they go on their training arc, right? Training against opponents that are way too powerful for you. Like these are challengers level players and beyond. And then that'll, once they get back to Game Changers, will help them dominate later on.
Oh yeah, I love the Funhaver Shonen.
Of course. But KP, Callie.
You actually pulled up something that I have open on a tab. But I think this co-ed experience, I was going to point it out because one of my biggest gripes from competing in the scene for so long was a lot of the top GC teams, especially back when there was 8 to 12 GC orgs getting paid to play the game, a majority of them don't play in co-ed, like don't even make the effort to attempt to play in co-ed. And Passion Project is one of the few teams that is, and I think it sets them far apart from the rest of the competition right now. And I also, even though I haven't been competing for the last month, I still regularly talk to people that are scrimming, are playing on a daily basis, and I've heard really good things coming from Passion Project in scrims. I've heard really good things come from Coach Joe as a coach. I know he's not with them anymore, which is a topic we'll get into
next,
very, very briefly.
I mean, we can literally go there like right now if you want.
Yeah, but to wrap up the point, I've heard really great things about them recently. And I'm really impressed by them getting out there and playing in co-ed. There's only 2 orgs right now in GC that are paid to play the game. And one of those hasn't signed up for a co-ed tournament all year. So, I think that speaks volumes to the work that Passion Project is doing in the downtime.
You took the words right out of my mouth, right? Because I was fully expecting you to talk. Well, I was going to mention, KP, like you were one of those players that took that initiative way early on to actually play in co-ed tournaments, and there's a reason why you and your teams are always like top 1, top 2, top 3 in GC and pretty much any tournament that you were in. It's there's a reason why a team like Passion Project is going to be one of those winning teams, is because they try a little bit more.
100%, and the squad is just full of like young up and coming players. I mean, like Unstable is nutty. Lazy Lion, disgusting. Like Jazzy, there's the experienced player who's not only being the main duelist, but IGL. Like Sibui or Kat, like my former teammate. Like she's a beast in her own. Like she grew so much on our squad. I could say very good things about all those players, and I think they just have a really strong team identity right now.
Hmm. And I want to go back to that tweet that we just were highlighting, which is the fact that the only question mark for this squad going into main event is who is their new coach, if they even are going to have one, right? Coach Joe taking a step over to Challengers League, joining Sad Esports as their head coach. So I know there was like posts coming out from the players looking for a coach, and I don't know if you have any, insider information on that, KP or Callie, about who their coach might be, or even if they have one. But I know how much, we'll talk about this later for another team in particular, the coach can change the team, I guess, environment or the team chemistry, and like what it requires from the players in terms of the leadership style.
I don't get any leaks. Nobody
No
says
leaks for
anything to
Callie.
me.
Oh.
Nobody says
You
gotta
anything to
hook
me
him up.
ever.
I'll give you a
ever.
leak,
No one gives
Callie.
me anything.
You want to hear my
But-
leak to you?
Sure.
I think you're amazing.
It's a great leak.
Oh, that's not a leak. I'm just
Aw.
kidding. But definitely coaches can be a huge impact. I think, having met Coach Joe a few times and a lot of the other coaches in the GC scene, they have, coaches have this opportunity to put their fingerprints on the game, and that's kind of a really big thing to lose right before maybe the third biggest tournament of the year for this team. So it'll be interesting to see how much preparation they had, how much time they knew Coach Joe was going to be leaving, and how much preparation they were able to fit in before he officially left, and how that translates over into maybe which style they're going to be playing if they get a new coach whose identity kind of switches differently from what Coach Joe was instilling in the team. Will there be a clash of ideas in what they have been preparing and what they've currently, or what they are going to be preparing with their new coach if they have one, and kind of how they're going to approach the game, especially with a lot of changes, not only changes that have happened maybe since the last time they've played a tier 2 or a tier 3, but changes that are going to happen in the future as well, as far as like future proofing, quote unquote.
Well, I think we set the scene pretty well for Passion Project, our number 1 seed coming in to main event number 2. So we're going to be moving on to our next team, which is a household name at this point, the previous world champions. Callie, I'll hand it off to you to introduce our number 2 seed.
Yes, you know them. Either you love them or you hate them. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like we only love them when they're playing on the international stage, but it is Shopify Rebellion. The reigning world champs, the lineup of just incredibly cracked across the team. Just everyone just seems to be firing on all cylinders at all times. And I think they have some of the more, just because of how good the team overall has been, I feel like some of their players become quote unquote underrated, as they're forgotten because just the whole team is so good. And what we were talking about earlier was talking about how they're not just competing. They are in Game Changers. We were talking about how this Passion Project and Shopify are both competing in, other tournaments. But even within the scope of GC, they're competing in bigger tournaments, quote unquote. And so I'm just would like to pull this up really quickly, just the bracket from the Red Bull Instalock tournament, which was, yes, it did bring back some rematches, a rematch between G2 and Shopify of former world stage competitors. G2 beat old Shopify in 2022, and then G2 and Shopify, I believe, played at least once or twice in 2023, and G2 coming out on top this time. But don't forget that the format in this entire
3 duelist minimum
was
required.
just weird. It was really weird. And yes, it kind of fits, it does kind of fit Shopify in that they have a lot of really cracked aimers, but then it does take away from their overall team chemistry. And there was a lot of conversation online about this, because everyone was like, oh, you're bringing together, 4 of the best teams, and then you're going to force them to play 3 duelists. And there was a lot of discourse around that. But, 3 matches against, they got to play every single team, which was cool. Being the only representative of North America, they did get to play all the other teams, which is ideal. And coming out in second, I think not too bad for what seemed to be more of a Puggy style tournament. But we were talking about Beyond NA, and they were playing in challengers, if I can find them. I didn't scroll down here earlier, but they did qualify through to the round of 64 or through the round of, I think it was 32, which is a lot better than they'd done in previous challengers events where they, I think, were getting, knocked out a little bit earlier in the tournaments. So improvement has been shown there, which is good. And we were talking about that earlier. And I just want to, get your thoughts about maybe the improvement and how does that look for the scene of Game Changers or just for Shopify in general?
I want to throw a question at you, Callie. Because of Instalock and G2 winning, does that mean G2 is the best GC team in the world?
I think it means that that G2 is the best 3 duelist team in the world.
Good answer.
I'd like to add in here as well. I think I saw a lot of rhetoric around that tournament online, especially
Same here.
like as a competitor, you never look at that stuff. But now that I'm not competing, I'm clicking on the VLR threads, the Twitch chats, the Reddits, whatever.
No, stay away from
And
VLR
Finally in the
threads.
drama. You're in the
and
cesspool.
a lot of people forget that as a competitor, Shopify had to travel across the ocean to get to that tournament.
Mhm.
Only had they're on like 1 or 2 days of practice, doing content the whole time for the event, new setups, new food, everything about that as a competitor completely changes your usual environment as you're playing the game, right? And then secondly, in the back of their minds throughout that whole event, they're thinking, oh shit, not only do we have to finish this event out, we have to get back on a plane. And the day after we land back in NA, I'm pretty sure the very next day they're playing GC Open Qual 2,
Qualifier too.
which they won pretty dominantly, by the way. So I feel like that whole Red Bull thing it's an asterisk on Shopify, and I
Okay.
definitely still think they're number 1 in the world for sure.
And for me, I feel like I want to dive a little bit deeper into 2 things when we talk about Shopify and beyond Game Changers for the Instalock tournament itself. I saw both sides of the coin. It felt like for why they had that, I guess, twist or that format with the 3 duelists is you also don't want to put these teams at a disadvantage, having that content to review or that source material for other teams to look back at if you are going to bring them up to this world stage. That's kind of something that goes into GCC when you're joining is you can only watch their VODs against other teams in their region. You don't get that comparison point. So if they're going up against 3 duelists, you don't expect them to pull out that composition on the international stage later down the line. So maybe
Would
that's
be the first time we've seen it.
I was about to say, I was going to mention that, unless
Yeah.
you're a certain Pacific team by accident. But that's still such a funny, historic moment, I feel like, in the Game Changers scene now. And it worked insanely well for them. But yeah, so I think that's part of the reason why I think they didn't do a standard format. And I did like the aggression it brought. I was hoping to see maybe it would affect the composition or 2 that was run by one of these teams, but they're a higher echelon for a reason. They're not going to play maybe a meme composition or 2. But I want to throw now to you, Keg, specifically, because you're our resident challengers expert. Did you get to cover any of the Shopify Rebellion games during the open qualifier itself?
Jeez.
And then also, I think they played also in relegation too. They got pretty far in that tournament as well, trying to fight back in.
Relegation?
Or they didn't get the
Yeah,
qualify,
they didn't play
but
in
there was
relegation.
yeah.
No, I don't think we covered them in top 32. I don't think we covered them in open quals at all. I think we wanted to, but it's just, there's a lot of metrics that go into what you want to get for qualifiers because you're looking at the quality of matches, you're looking at what the potential viewership could look like. You don't want to overstream a team either when it comes to open qualifiers or really any team like that because it could put the teams at a disadvantage or people could go stale of them or a litany of different things. So, unfortunately, no. It would have been nice. I like covering Shopify. They're cool. I like casting them. But no, we don't always get that lucky.
One thing as well that I kind of want to showcase from challengers is if we could really quickly go to my screen share in the first open qual for challengers, which in my opinion was I competed in this, and this was the way more competitive one because nobody had qualified to challengers yet.
Yeah.
So all the potential teams are in the pool. They make it to upper quarterfinals, which I believe this is top 12 at this point. So there's only 12 teams remaining. They lose to Winthrop 13-9 on Sunset. This game at one point was 9-5 in favor of Shopify.
No, we didn't cast that.
They lose 0-2, unfortunately, but Winthrop goes on to qualify for challengers. Then they drop down to lower bracket. They play against Leet or 1337, and they have another close series. And Leet goes on to almost qualify for challengers against Dobros, barely losing 1-2. And look at the category of players we have in here. I mean, every single one of these players is challengers material, like we mentioned earlier, and they're the only GC team that is doing this. Like, in the entire world, they're the only GC team that is pushing the envelope this far. I haven't seen any GC team from EMEA, APAC, LATAM, any other region that is going this far in their co-ed challengers open qualifier. Actually, excuse me, Team Liquid Brazil did go pretty far in theirs.
I think G2
And-
also just
I think-
went pretty far.
I was like, I think
In
G2
the
was
doc
playing in
qualifier.
Polaris.
Yeah.
Okay. So
But it was, you're
they're,
right,
they're
Shopify
on,
was
they're
the
on
first.
par. Yeah,
No, wait, Liquid, I think,
Shopify-
no, wasn't Brazil like right before GSR?
I think Brazil happened right
Yeah.
before, but like this is the thing, we're talking about the top 3 from the last
yeah,
from last
literally
year,
Yeah,
the top
exactly.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
and that's it.
Huh? It's like there's a
I will say,
like,
I think
It's
correlation.
almost like there's a correlation.
Guys, I
Yeah.
think
Wow.
Texas just competed, didn't they, in the open qual? But they got cut like really, really early. So at least they competed in it.
I give massive props to any of the GC teams
That
that
competed.
sign up and compete, because that's the first step, and half the teams aren't even doing that.
Well,
So, I mean, we say that a lot, right? Like, well, we see that a lot, right? But why?
So I think from being in the scene so long and talking to many people and knowing many different personality types, whether from trying people out, being teammates with people, I think it's as simple as when salaries were inflated through the 2022 season and we had 10 to 12 GC teams signed in NA, people got really content with being the big fish in the small pond. Like, just straight up. Like, there was no need to I mean, no, I'm not going to throw out any names from back then or any orgs, but for reference, let's say you're top 5 in GC. You're very comfortably making the main event every single time, but you're not necessarily top 2. Like, it was us and C9 White always top 2. So you're comfortable making the main event of GC, but every time you play a co-ed event, you're kind of getting smashed. So I think a lot of teams tried at first, but then after they just kept getting smashed and like going out first round, second round, I think a lot of them just gave up, unfortunately, which is really, it was sad to see, but I think they just didn't push hard enough, to be honest.
Do you think that's a symptom of like what GC as like a concept is, like the way Riot's made it?
Slightly. I think there's a little bit of a bubble aspect going on. And I think it's a little bit unhealthy. I think there definitely could be more of a I remember bringing this up multiple times, like the winner of GC Champs should potentially get a spot in challengers for the next season.
Yeah.
Obviously they can still be relegated, still be moving down the system if they can't prove they can hang at that level. But currently, as it stands, there's no way to go from GC to challengers naturally in the ladder. You have to do it on your own through connections, through skill, and currently the only player that's done it is Bob.
yeah.
There's no natural way for even for Shopify Rebellion. They placed 12th, placed really far in the challengers qualifier, but how does that entire team make it to challengers without qualifying? Like, it's the only way right now, and I don't think it's healthy.
It does seem weird that there's not like a natural pipeline beyond winning GC.
Right, exactly.
And I want to touch on that too. Number one, we should get a skin for the world champ for the GCC winner.
that'd be
I
sick.
think that'd be cool. A Shopify
I want a KP
Rebellion
skin.
And then number two, you talked about like what can solve or pop that bubble. And there was the concept that came up and really hasn't been tapped into, I think, other than maybe, I think we'd had it happen in the Pacific region once, of the player borrowing from challengers and game changers that VCT offered this year. That's new. I think I don't know what way, and I've tried to think about this as well. Maybe you can share a little bit and get ideas in the pool of how they can incentivize the VCT teams to, pull these players from the game changers or from the challengers teams to give them that experience in tier 1 on the main stage. But I know that's like one way they tried that has kind of fizzled out, I guess, to say on Riot's end.
Yeah, I mean it's fizzled,
Right.
but like also they have incentivized it in that, like, I believe GC players don't count as an import, even if they like would be.
Mm.
So I believe seeing something like that in the rulebook. When I took a glance like a long time ago, when I heard rumors of that, or heard the whispers of that clause. Um, I think part of it just could be that a lot of these teams are very content with the fact that they have their tier one roster. And, when they announce the tier two partnership where they, franchise teams could have that second, a partnership with a challengers team. I remember like, oh, so every VCT team is going to have a challengers rep, or at least 8, right? Will, because there's only like 8 in the challengers or something like that. And I think there's only a few that actually do have challengers affiliates. So, they seem reluctant to expand their operations. Like the franchise teams seem reluctant to expand their operations to even challengers.
Mhm.
So I think asking them to maybe also expand their operations into GC is probably something that, which is something they can do, just seems like something that they're not really too interested in at this point, because there's no incentive for them to even move into
Which
challengers.
I also, hot take of mine, I'll put out there. I think it'd be really cool if Riot made every VCT franchise team required to have a Game Changers team.
That's what I was thinking. Why haven't they done that yet?
No, if you look at EMEA, because I'm, I guess, now one of the GC EMEA resident casters, at least for the group stage, like Carmine Corps, they have a GC team. Giant X, GC team. G2, GC team. So like a lot of those orgs in EMEA do in fact have a GC team. And I think, NA used to have more orgs, like you said, C9 White, that had a Game Changers team that don't necessarily anymore. Imagine a Sentinels Game Changers team. I mean, come on.
Almost happened.
Cloud 2.0
It'd be hype.
would be.
Well, and I think we have it on the docket of topics we're getting into later, but I think there's a very specific reason why we see EMEA have so many orgs compared to NA having this lack of orgs as of late, and we're gonna get into it later. But I
Yeah.
have some really good points to bring up about that.
Well, I think we've been on Shopify a little bit. I think we spent a lot of time on them because they are that kind of glimmer of hope for progression towards a co-ed future in the Valorant ecosystem. But I want to move on. KP, this is your spotlight, your child to shine about. Reformed GC, our number 3 seed, is up next.
Yes. So this is Reformed is currently Slandy, Kazler, Misu, Riv, and Millie. All respective goats in their roles. Slandy's coming into her first time IGL after her position on Misfits, where she was more of that flex initiator, like Breach, Sky, like Flash player. She's really like taken up on that IGL role, especially after I like departed the team. I worked with her a lot on things that she can improve on, calling wise, leading the team conflicts. Like we've been, and even to this day, like still talking about things that happen in a team environment that as an IGL, people kind of look to you to be that person to really step up and be the leader. And I love this squad so much. Like the team Reformed was branded a way long time ago, back when I played in co-ed, and the brand kind of just like simmered down after I joined Shopify. And I figured I'd bring it back this year. Didn't know what I was doing yet, whether I was going to go full-time competing or what opportunity would come my way. And they've kind of taken it upon themselves to keep the brand going, even though I'm no longer on the team. And it's awesome to see the progression of the squad. I've got some stuff to screen share here, but Reformed over the last month, there's been 3 online GC quals, and in the first one, so this is when I was here, so we've been joking a little bit about in the team chats that maybe I was the problem. I mean, like fuck me, I guess. But we started in the first qualifier, we placed 24th. Second qualifier, 7th, 8th. Unfortunately, losing very close series to FlyQuest, and then recently, with the addition of Misu, the team actually beat FlyQuest 2-0, got first place, and secured that 3rd seed for the GC main event. And I've got some funny stuff here with Kazler and the Sisyphus pushing the boulder up a cliff meme. You can see in all of Kazler's media, this is like half her tweets is just the boulder going up the cliff. And it was so awesome to see them win recently. Obviously, Prez tweeting about how she's first time IGL, adding a bunch of orgs. And also, I thought this was hilarious to show as well. Little bit of shade towards
I loved that
FlyQuest.
tweet.
And I love this so much because I've been saying for the past year, it seems, there's been no big storyline in GC North America. As much as like being on the receiving end of all the Cloud9 white tweets was super annoying, I do gotta say, like back then, back in the 2022 season, it was fucking hype. Like people loved the drama on Twitter. People were so into it. Like the sort of like villain character that C9 White was playing helped the scene a lot. I mean, look at Boostio on 100 Thieves right now. Like he's playing that role so well, and people like whether it's like the expression, whether you love him or you hate him, you're gonna watch. And I think GCNA needs more of this, like especially right now, with sort of the lack of awareness on events this year. So just wanted to show this. I thought this was a hilarious tweet, and they ended up following through and beating FlyQuest. But yeah, Reformed, honestly, young squad, really oriented on team play as well. And I gotta shout out the coach and manager, Remote and Lycane. There's not a lot of amazing coaches in Game Changers. Just fundamental wise, experience wise, there's a lot of, unfortunately, like trickle down effect where you'll get someone who's maybe doesn't have great experience or hasn't like played at a high level, and they'll teach bad habits and bad things to players, and then that kind of gets sent around to everyone in the scene. It's kind of like a negative feedback loop, so to speak. And I gotta say, Remote being the head coach of this Reformed squad, he's a full-time student as well. Like, so he does it on his free time. Like, this squad is not getting paid, and they are playing pretty much like, I'm still in the team chats. They're playing 6 to 8 hours a day in there, talking about strats, going over stuff, playing games with each other after prac, like working on chemistry, working on anything they can possibly do to get a leg up on these other teams. So really hungry and thirsty free agent squad is Reformed.
And I echo everything you just said. And, I'm a little stats goblin, and I was the one that made all those calculations for KDs back on the team overview. And the 1.27 that was there for the team KD, that was without you in the calculation, KP. And when I was looking at things, you said you might be the problem. Like, you are the one with the most kills, like, in most of those matches. And I was doing the calculations, I'm like, this is totally going to lower their overall average. And that 1.33 that was just Open Qualifier 3 that you talked about was with the core 5 that are now competing in main event. So you could see it like skyrocketed, right? With this new squad, with the addition of Misu, which we'll talk about again later because it's a pretty big deal coming into the, I guess, what is going to be main event 2. Misu's Cuties, right? They pugged out that last Open Qualifier number 3, and so Misu got to play with them, and it really worked out for multiple reasons, looking at how main event is now going to go. But other than that, I do want to shout out, because you didn't mention it, I loved the hashtag 4KP. I think you tweeted, that you were so proud of them and everything, like you said, Slandy first IGL, and they all just replied with that, and that is very wholesome, like you said, keeping the brand alive, and it shows that they have a cause to rally behind.
Shows your influence.
Yeah, that team, I gotta say, like that team is super special. There's been in the past, I've highly rated sometimes my old Reformed squad in the co-ed, sometimes even over my experiences on Shopify. But let's say if both those teams are equal standing, this Reformed GC squad genuinely felt on equal footing, if not even more of like just that family vibe that you don't see a lot anymore. Like, dead ass, there were days where in the last 2 months, from February to like April, when I departed the team, we would have the highest highs on that team. We'd come in, go over something, everything would go right. Everyone would be ultra high vibes. It'd be insane. And then there were also days where we'd come in, every single scrim, we'd get like 2 to 22'd or like 4 to 20'd, like just bad losses, nothing going right, the practice not seeming like it was working out. And never once on that team did people blame each other? Like the family aspect is unreal. I mean, we all know there's a lot of drama in GC. There's a lot of team disbanding and literally reforming.
Hmm.
But on this squad, I gotta say, like the trust they have in each other, to even if someone has a bad game, they know someone else is going to pick it up. If someone has a bad series, okay, it's the next series. They're going to come back. Like there's never an ounce of like shit talking teammates or bad vibes on the squad. So it makes them really fun to watch. And so far with the addition of Misu, she brings that like sort of chaos yet like ice cold fragging power that she had on Misu's cuties. And I think it's been really great to see for them.
Amazing. Well, I think that covers Reform GC at least for now. Like I said, we'll get to talk with these teams a little bit more later on when we get to some of our more fun segments. But that leads us into our second, long-term, I guess, organization competing now in Game Changers for FlyQuest Red. Maybe one of the hotter topics
Oof.
right now in the GC scene that we'll get to, but you can see the squad there. That was a result of that kind of, I guess, Shatterdome where they trialed a bunch, and I mean the majority of these free agent players that came out of disbands from like DSG Complexity. And I had the KDAs on there again because of this main issue that we see here for 1.3 versus 1.38, where Lace didn't compete in open qualifier 1 or 2, and they came back for open qualifier number 3. So you can see the difference maybe between these two squads with and without Lace being in the pool. I mean, I've been told that, she brings a more aggressive play style to things, and I can agree with that, especially when I see, how her and Sonder play that double initiator with the Sova and the Breach on Sunset, maps like that. But yeah, going back to looking at that, those tweets and that announcement that had come out where they're now healed up. Kara was subbing in for a while, and that can be a major kind of momentum stall. And I know, like you said, with some of these signed orgs, they have a big focus on content. And that's something FlyQuest has also been really trying to achieve. So they're trying to balance those sort of things. I mean, even this week, right, as they're preparing for main event with their bootcamp in LA, they have the FlyQuest soiree about to come up, right, with
Yep.
their Metamorphosis initiative. So the players also have to kind of appear at that, which can get in the way of, I guess, preparing for a competition of this scale.
Yeah, I thought I'd reach out to Miss Javi about that still. I didn't realize the tomorrow was happening until like yesterday.
2 days
so.
from now. Well,
Y-
yeah,
you
because
know,
we're recording.
That's fine. I'll still try to find a way to worm myself in, but
I was like, if I knew about it prior, I would have been like, I'm on the West Coast now. Let me fly down. But 2 days notice, nah.
look, all I'm saying is the last time I went to a soiree with the CLG people, it did not end well a few weeks later. So I'm hoping
no.
it does not happen again.
I mean,
Hey,
I was
Kelly,
also at that
you were there
CLG
with me,
thing.
yeah. We can't go. We're gonna
I
curse
can't
it.
go to events with Red anymore because if I go to an event with Red, then the org gets bought out by NRG. So.
Oh no.
I'm so mad too because NRG literally just had an event last Friday, and I got sick at the last second because I was supposed to go and I couldn't go. I was so sad.
Well, I will say, with the soiree, I know that Starbound's been feeling under the weather, so that also like they probably aren't going to be there, which is sad. We will get more Starbound content or media, but also it's been hard for them to boot camp with the rest of the team, and that could affect things as well. But moving on to, I guess, why they're a hot topic in the scene right now. And this is nothing on the players, because obviously the players, right, they've been working hard the entire season, like consistently, right? Semifinals, grand finalists in their qualifiers. But we can switch over to this tweet that came out recently, right? Where it says NAGC2 roster lock is Monday, and for the second straight event, the same signed org is still trying players from their main free agent competition within a day of lock, and free agent teams can't practice and won't have time to get backup players by tomorrow if they lose theirs. With this, it has affected a lot of things for main event too. And I mean, you can see players, KP, Passion Project a lot, Jazzy, Sabui, they all mentioned it, right? They were probably players that were trialing for this, so that might affect how they prepared. I know it affected floppers really heavily because they were going to lose one of their core members potentially. That would mean the difference between them qualifying for main event and not, because those points would be voided. And I just like I don't know if this is intentional or not because we saw the lineup, they kept the same squad, and there's also rumors going around that maybe this is their last event together being assigned under, and that they might get a change as well. So I feel like the stakes are high, really high for the players that are currently with FlyQuest Red.
I mean, how do you pick this one apart, right? First of all, if that's intentional, that's the biggest brain strat I've ever seen in a competition, which, I mean, no matter how you
Messed
look at
up,
it.
but I mean,
Oh, you know what?
effective.
That's sports for you. Everything's messed up. But I mean, this is that part where it's like it's hard to kind of pick apart what you can and can't say about things and like how you want to approach this, right? Because it's like, you mentioned FlyQuest. This could be like their last event. Supposedly, assuming from what you're saying, under FlyQuest banner, it's like if I'm FlyQuest, yeah, I don't blame them for exiting GC. It doesn't really seem like there's a benefit of being in GC, especially if your only presence as an org in Valorant is just GC and not winning an event. Like, what's the point?
I don't think that it's that they would be leaving GC. I think it was just the roster.
The
would be
5 would be
changing.
gone.
Yeah, the 5 would be changing.
Yeah, but even then, right? Like, there were rumors that FlyQuest was trying to get into VCT. That didn't work. They only have GC, and we talked about all the bubbling issues and how maybe salaries aren't necessarily there anymore. If you're in the business sense of FlyQuest, it's like, okay, well, where are we getting that money from? They're
Mhm.
not. So they're running the entire team. I'm assuming on a deficit, and it's like, damn, like if all this is happening and they haven't been able to find like a consistent fifth, I mean, that could speak volumes about the team, like, the inner workings or at least the management in of itself, but that's just me speculating. I'm really wondering where FlyQuest is going to exist after this event.
I don't see Red
Right.
leaving though. I
No?
think
I don't either.
especially because it's of Red. Like that's they're
Mhm.
one of their biggest parts of
I mean,
them.
go read
and
their
it's-
bio. Literally, I can actually pull it up. I think here in a second. It literally says for FlyQuest Red, home of FlyQuest Red, supporting and showcasing women and gender expansive folks in gaming.
Okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't say
Like
just
I
Yeah.
Valorant.
don't see FlyQuest leaving
Doesn't say
Valorant
Valorant. True.
or just game changers in general because Red has been one of the more successful programs, at least in this space, not as not even just but like I was saying before FlyQuest cut my power, Red has been like a staple of just marginalized gender esports, I think, for as long as it's existed, and I think that that's kind of their identity, and I feel like especially with the way that they've been, able to continue existing even after all of the CLG stuff and then the brief period as just Red and then moving into under FlyQuest. I don't really see them just leave Valorant or any sort of scene at that point. Yes, like maybe you might consider their CS2 team a lot better than comparatively than the Valorant team, but I don't see them leaving entirely. I see maybe yes, they might restructure completely or partially or completely with a lot of this new talent, but I don't think they're going to leave entirely just because of who they are and the fact that they're probably not going to leave until it becomes so difficult because they are getting income from other things that are going to support it. Like the League of Legends part is huge of a huge part of FlyQuest, and that is bringing in a lot of money for them. So especially with the amount of attention that they brought to the content side of things, I don't really see them deciding to leave.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of a misconflation, right? Because it's like saying that Red's going to leave completely, it doesn't mean that Red's going to disband everything that they're doing. I think their Counter-Strike roster is amazing. I think they're doing much better than, even in terms of getting second place, right, for Game Changers. I think everything that CS Red's doing is really good. But even in terms of that, right, you could be looking at the results of FlyQuest through League of Legends and stuff. We don't necessarily know if that money is being pumped into FlyQuest Red or how that's distributed. That's just, speculation about the numbers that we wouldn't really know unless we were in FlyQuest themselves. I just, if I'm a businessman, if I'm a businessologist and I'm working for FlyQuest and I'm looking at FlyQuest Red, I'm like, look, I don't know if I can justify this.
And that's one of the big issues in the scene right now is that there isn't justification or enough coverage or support from Riot to, I guess, support these orgs supporting players. And we can actually jump over to YFPX, another org that has made a statement that they are leaving the Game Changers scene. I have a tweet from Nima actually directly discussing this, right? I'll go ahead and pull up my Twitter. And it just talks about things that where they love the players, they love the initiatives, but again, there's more competition days with this format for players, but there isn't a coverage, I guess, for them, right? For these open qualifiers. All of that is out of Radiant's own pocket. Whether they're dedicating individuals to make, assets to publish their just the brackets, whether it's the going live notifications, and even just the OBS stream, all of that is out of Radiant's own funding. Open qualifiers and similar for EMEA with their group stage, Riot did not give them a budget for it. The budget starts with main event in NA and starts with 2 days into playoffs for EMEA. And so this is just difficulties, I feel like, where also KP, you said I something about like with the layoffs that happened at Riot around the same time, the NA teams like operationally got gutted as well. So I can let you comment a little bit more on this because you might have some better information.
I just completely lagged for like a whole minute.
Oh no.
Sorry.
I mean, all I was
were you-
talking about was just going through the Nima tweet and mentioning how Riot basically gutted the NA Game Changers operational teams from their side as well.
Right. Okay. So basically, from my understanding, is in the past there was 2 people running Game Changers North America. 2 people. That's it
Mhm.
for the entire scene. And to my understanding, it's either the same number or less. And what we see in EMEA is a format where it's very much like challengers. The teams qualify for the main event or whatever system it is, and they have one weekly match. They play those weekly matches for about 1 to 2 months approximate, and then that leads into a bracket at the end. So very much like what we just saw with Split 1 of challengers. So it keeps things fresh. You have a week to prepare for each match. You have a week to the teams. G2 can tweet out, okay, our match next week is against Carmine Corp, and they tweet out a piece of content, a hype for the match, and then the match goes live, and they can do post-match content as well. Whereas in NA, the big problem for every single org, and I like still have very close relationships with like the former Shopify management, everyone that was working there, and I learned a lot about like the back end of esports operations. And the problem is in NA, we're having these massive event, but it's once every 3 months. And so you have a fire under your ass as a player to where if you don't compete or like if you don't perform when that event comes around, you're screwed. Like it's just wraps for you. And those 3 events, like it could be maybe in April, a certain patch of the game really favors your team. Maybe Neon is great. Like maybe Neon's going to make a huge comeback. Fractures in the map pool, splits in the map pool. You're amazing. And then come October, it's just not a good patch for you. It's not a good map pool for you because we only have this one event every 3 months thing. And having the one event only 3 months also makes people forget about it. Now, Radiant and Heather are doing amazing things, even giving the open qualifiers their own coverage, making sure there's streams, making sure there's tweets. That stuff is great, amazing. The problem right now is from speaking with co-ed players still, other GC competitors, is there's no stakes to these matches, right? If you're Shopify Rebellion and you have 3 chances to qualify to the main event, you're not stressing. There's absolutely no stake. It's not life or death. In the past, the qualifier was somewhat hyped because it's like, oh shit, like Shopify Rebellion lost a match. Like they're in the lower bracket. Like they could not make the top 8 of the main event. Or like that one time C9 White accidentally, something happened to where they had to forfeit the match against Immortals last year or the year prior. And so they got sent to the lower bracket in the qualifier. And now all of a sudden, everyone was like, oh my God, wait, the number 1 team that's won like 6 times in a row might possibly not make the main event. But when you have these 3 qualifiers that give out so many points and the format is so confusing for the average viewer, it just turns people off from watching straight up. Like I've asked co-ed players if they even know what the GC format is anymore, and they're like, wait, the qualifiers don't give you points to get to GC champs. And I'm like, I have to explain, no, those qualifiers give you points to make the main event, which then gives you a different set of points to get to champs. It's too confusing, it's too drawn out, and there's no stakes at all.
So,
Mm.
do you think, let's say this whole year ends, do you think it's going to remain the same going into next year? No changes.
I would hope not, because there was a poll given to in the player council. There's a number of players on there last year. Let me pull it up. In the VPA, just to list off some names like Boostio, Aproto, Brock, Mel, Lexi, myself, Bonita, like basically any T1 or T1 GC Pro you could think of is on this panel. And we gave them a GC feedback for the last year calling for format changes, because it sucks. Like, you have one bad event and all of a sudden you don't make champs at the end of the year, like literally. Or you have one bad event and you're down by 40 points for the rest of the year. Like, it's brutal. And no changes were made. So I would hope that going into next year, they realize that across the board, I mean, we all see it. Viewership is down. People are not even aware that GC is going on for the most part. And something needs to come in and revitalize the scene. And I think if we had EMEA's system, you would see more orgs in GC North America, because if I'm Sentinels, why would I pay, let's say Reform GC or Passion Project, why the hell would I pay them for 12 months out of the year when they're only going to play 3 big events throughout that year? I would just pay them. I would say, hey, when main event 1 rolls around, we'll pay you for that month. When main event 2 rolls around, we'll pay you for that month. When main event 3 rolls around, we'll pay you for that month. Boom. I just saved 9 months of giving out salaries. But
And we saw that.
Exactly.
I think.
And
Yeah, we saw that with Decimate.
with Decimate, yes. And in EMEA, like on the flip side of that, on EMEA, we're seeing Heroic just signed a team. Falcons has a team. All these teams, and I know from what I know is competing, talking to EMEA orgs in the past, yes, the salary is typically lower than NA. It's still very livable. Like it's solid. It's good. And it allows the players to play the game full time. And since they have that format where you play 1 match a week and then it leads into a bracket, the org says, oh, wow, there's actually a point to paying you in February, paying you in March, paying you in April. Oh, and then wait, you mean Split 2 starts in May? Okay, we're going to pay you in May. We're going to pay you in June. There's a point to it. Where in NA, from my talks, since I got cut from Shopify and now, my talks with organizations all got to the same point of like, they want to support the scene. They want a GC team like so badly. They want to get in, support GC women and marginalized genders, but it just gets to that note of it's just not worth it right now. And I think Keg, you mentioned that earlier, and I think you hit the head on the nail. Like, yeah, it's just not worth it to a lot of the orgs. That's all.
So why hasn't North America taken the EMEA format?
That I
Seems like a no-brainer.
couldn't answer. I have no idea.
I don't necessarily think this is a reason, but I think it's because it's also an issue right now. I think with the format, like you mentioned, KP, is that with these only 3 events, they're still having conflicts with other Riot official events, right? I think that was something I noticed specifically for the open qualifiers is you have VCT Americas going on at the same time, or even right now, it's going to be back-to-back challengers into CVAL. Shanghai is going on into Game Changers. And so they just tried to squish Game Changers into wherever it fit, where there weren't a lot of events happening in other scenes. Like, it feels like an afterthought consistently. And even like when you talk about like these breaks that are about to happen, like we don't get main event. The qualifier for Series 3 isn't until the end of July. I was looking at this because I'm like scheduling the open qualifier and official cast and everything. And then I believe the main event for itself isn't until September. September or something. Like, obviously, it's usually right before Game Changers Champions happens, but that's because they're trying to wait out the entire month of August for Champions.
Right.
And
The gap is ridiculous.
It
like,
is. They're just trying to basically place Game Changers around the tier 1 schedule. And probably for that viewership's sake, but now it's harming the players almost.
Like, it's a good idea in theory to do that, but like, I mean, there's just a burnout with a decreased viewership, but doesn't really seem to be working in practice. I mean, again, I don't think it's a bad idea. You know, in theory, you have consistent 24/7 Valorant. You can just plug your brain in and not really see the light of day again, and that's great. But I honestly don't know with the format right now of what they're doing, how you can improve it.
Well, we talked about improvements. We've talked about maybe some systematic issues, but we still have more teams to introduce because that's what's important here is the players who are, you know, trying to at least earn a spot through this system at Game Changers Champs. So I want to hand it to you, Keg, to introduce our next squad, who also has had their fair share of dilemmas facing organizations of Solstice, one of the free agent teams competing in main event.
So we have Teddy Tactics coming in here, right? Oh, Solstice, okay. Well,
Solstice is next.
Oh, sorry. On the Runner show, it says Teddy, but Solstice has been an interesting team. They've been one of those teams that I don't necessarily know how I feel about yet. I know in our unofficial casting going into this last event, there were some players on this team that we didn't necessarily know a whole lot about. Really, the big popular player here would be Nora, and I've been a big Nora enjoyer friend for a long time. But for everybody else, it was definitely more of a surgical experimentation phase to see how the players would participate and see how they would do. And honestly, Solstice did a lot better than I thought they would.
And again, with this this squad, I'm excited for it because we have Nora joining the crew. I think they pugged with a different team for the last open qualifier number 3. But now they're joining this squad, and it's gonna hopefully strengthen things a fair bit. Other than that, I do like the story for, I believe, how this team was formed. And I can actually go read this from you guys, from Sabubu, their IGL, because this team wasn't even supposed to exist at the fundamental level. Sabubu was supposed to be a substitute player actually for open qualifier number 1. And they were pulled in. And then during their first 2 days of scrim before open qualifier number 1, they found out that the team did not have an IGL. And Sabubu had never IGL'd, very similar to like Slandy, right, with Form GC, and they started IGLing. And since they placed, like you said, a lot better than they thought they would, top 4 in that first open qualifier, they were welcomed into the roster full time. And then Melia came back. And now, like I said, Scary Shark, they've added on as a controller, and they're just hoping this kind of completes that picture. But one of the things I wanted to focus on for this team in particular is just the fact that they have gone through a lot this season, right? They have been kind of playing hot potato with a bunch of organizations, right? They were dropped by YFPX previously to pick up the new SNG core. They joined Equinox, and then there was a bunch of drama behind that organization. They became a free agent team again. And there were even talks of them getting signed by another big organization right before main event, maybe similar to the Decimate style that Mises Cuties had in Series 1. And then that also has fallen through. And they're doing all of this while scrimming, while preparing. And that's one of the things I actually got commentary from Nora about, is that this team's different, right? They hang out with each other outside of practice, and they practice for a few hours every single day. So they're putting in the time, and I just look up to them a lot because of that difficulty, where they may not be getting the results, they may not be getting a salary, may not be getting organizations to sign them, but they've been putting up consistent results as well. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I think they're going to be definitely one of the closer first opening matchups since they're paired against FlyQuest Red out the gate, but we'll have to wait and to see. But other than that, anybody else have any insight into this squad?
Go on, KP.
Yeah, I'd actually like to shout out Nora real quick. we trialed Nora before we got the opportunity to play with Kasler, and
Mm.
Nora was our choice as the reformed fifth, and then she ended up playing. She played the next month or two with a co-ed team, which I massively respect. Like I know Nora's played co-ed a lot before, and that experience is invaluable. Like it is so big to bring onto a team of from my knowledge, Solstice overall is a lesser experienced team. So
Mm.
her bringing in that experience and those fundamental habits that you see a lot of co-ed players and good co-ed players like have is huge for this roster. And just seconding, as a competitor myself, the whole hanging out with your team outside of practice time,
Mm.
absolutely massive. Like
Yep.
I have had players before in the past that are clock in, clock out, like a 9 to 5 job, and not all the time was it a bad experience or awful, but my memories of the players that were very much clock in, clock out are, I would say, overall a lot lesser than the players that I would hang out with all the time after practice, message about my life, my college, my relationships, whatever it was going on, people I would talk to about anything, not just Valorant. Those people you trust so much more in game, and the chemistry shows. Maybe not in a game like Counter-Strike, but in this game in Valorant, like it's unbelievable how much chemistry and like having fun matters.
Yeah. I think, going on top of that too, right? It's like it's not even just a competitor thing. It's for anywhere you go with like friends in school, relationships. Well, I guess not maybe relationships, but it's a basic networking thing where you just need to be able to trust people more and really let them have that insight into your life, and it creates lifelong bonds. But the storyline being one of the biggest ones, I suppose, is Solstice, like you said, Zoe, playing hot potato around with different orgs. It's so weird now that it's like kind of lifting up to the surface. And KP, I'm sure you could talk, Callie too, probably could talk so much about this, that way back in ye olden days, this was so common in GC. I mean, every other week I'd hear a rumor that Optic is signing a GC team, Sentinels is signing that same team, Washington Justice, Rogue rising from the dead and signing that same team. Like, it was so common all the time. But now that there's only two organizations left in GC, it's like, you're picking at the bones at this point if you're an org.
Mm.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely feel like this is a sort of a the expression history does not repeat but often rhymes type situation,
Yeah.
where like we're kind of hearing these rumors, teams are getting hyped up, and I know player perspective, a lot of the free agent rosters, what happens is like you'll have Passion Project rumored they're signing back to Complexity or whatever rumor it may be, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden Reformed and Solstice and whatever other free agent roster, they start comparing themselves to Passion Project. They start saying like, "Oh shit, like they're getting signed. Why aren't we getting signed? Like
Mhm.
where's our org, right?" And in a way, I doubt this is the situation, but in a way, this could be a giant mental game of Solstice giving themselves more gas behind them, more like oomph behind their squad to kind of like have this org stuff going around them. The other FA squads get jealous or think they deserve that org, and now it plays into the actual gameplay as well. So something interesting potentially.
I'm talking out of my ass, I think, about this, but like, wasn't that a big thing with Dart Monkeys?
Yes, massive. Absolutely massive. I heard Dart Monkeys was back then talking to TSM, talking
Yeah.
to C9 White after C9 White like was then V1. So
Mm.
I heard every other week that Dart Monkeys and
I heard
another
Sentinels and
FA
Optic.
squad was I heard so many stories, so many.
Pretty much all of them.
Well, we've talked about maybe some of these more committed free agent rosters, consistently scrimming, playing in co-ed events, etc. I want to move on to a team that's another free agent team that is taking the more laid back approach, and maybe it's just off of raw talent, off of friendships, off of enjoying playing together. But I want to move on to Mesos Millionaires. I mean, I love the name, I love the logo, I love the players. And Callie, I want to let you introduce this squad before I geek out about some of the players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely gonna give you time to geek out about the players. Unfortunately, for me at least, I wasn't able to see them compete in OQ3. I don't actually know if they did. I was out of the
They did.
country, and very much out of disconnected from everything. Which
This is a team I think
good.
Nora played on for Open Qualifier 3, actually. I'm going to go fact check that real quick.
They did,
Yeah.
and so that kind of screwed me over when I was looking at players to highlight for this team. But we do have a lot of very familiar names coming back into Mason Millionaires, and you look at the team KD. It's not like the most flashy KD, but it is solid, and that's I think what a lot of the team has been banking on is just being really really solid across the board. And I might rub some people the wrong way, but a lot of these players have been really solid pieces in other organizations, but I don't know if I would consider any of them to have been former stars of rosters. If that's a controversial take.
I think for this squad, right, it's just like Animal and Habibti, like they're friends and they wanted to compete together. I know Animal is a streamer. They've also play in a lot of co-ed events like the Funhaver series. I think they were actually at the Spike Drop LAN as well, if I remember
and
correctly.
he's a big lander.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they just are competing for the sake of competition.
Yeah, I believe I met Annie in Fullerton like 2 years ago at my first ever event.
Oh my god, was
Um,
I there too? I don't remember.
I don't remember if you were there.
I went to one of
I
the
do remember that
Fullertons.
event very fondly. It was my first event ever in esports, which was great.
Aw.
But and I met Emily back then too. But I do, keep running into them at lands when I go to lands, because they're almost always there. And yeah, you were talking about how this team is kind of just running on vibes, and honestly, when you have the talent to make top six, to be a top six, top eight team in the region off of vibes, that's not a bad place to be, because yes, players who are maybe not looking to get signed are on that team. There are players who may be looking to get signed, by playing on that team, and they're increasing their stock by performing well, and they're in a comfortable environment where they're going to be able to perform well and have a good time and not really have to get down on themselves about maybe competing with some of their teammates for signed spots. Like the energy will probably be one of the best energy teams that they have, and the vibes will be high, and that's, you can't discount the just the impact that energy and like how well you feel and how well we were talking about, players and teams that hang out after prac, and how much that can actually affect them. You can't discount the mental side of things.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the main storyline for this team is they are one of the teams that did play in the Radiant Academy, which is like the replacement now with Radiant taking over for like Sakura Cup or Game Changers Academy. So it's a chance to get those additional reps in if you do enjoy competing with the team. I know Teddy Tactics also competed in it with their core squad instead of going the Pug route where they separate their GC teams. But I think the main thing to highlight is, like we said, those roster changes that happened. Nora played in Open Qualifier 3. If we go to my screen share really fast, because there was an occurrence where Habibti, one of the players that founded this, made the decision to likely retire. They just were stressed out. They weren't enjoying playing as much. And then maybe it's going to be the main event kind of motivation or the success that they found, but they're coming back, right? They're returning to the squad to play in main event, which is the big thing. And I think it's funny also to highlight, like we said, this team doesn't take things seriously. If I go back to their profile really fast, and then 3 hours ago, they tweeted that they had not opened Valorant in a week. And main event is on, here you go, on Monday. And look, again, I forgot how fun the game is. And so I'm excited to see what the squad's going to do, just because it is going to be really excitement that's fueling them. And then also, we kind of haven't talked about, you said there's not really star players in your mind. I'll geek out a little bit later about Teddy is Fluffy, but there's someone to keep an eye on, because right, they weren't really given the chance in my mind to come into themselves when Misfits was falling apart. That's when they got signed by that squad. They were a collegiate demon in Crescent Cup and in Georgia Tech. And then also, I think it was really funny, I got to talk to them in DMs. In Open Qualifier 3, they were one of the few players alongside Melly, I think, that were top 3 Clove players, just because they wanted to hit the top on that role, on that agent. And I loved their playstyle and how chaotic they were in some of these games. So definitely a squad I'm looking forward to being that kind of question mark, maybe a dark horse in the event.
I think Teddy's goated. That's my thoughts.
Valid opinion, based opinion. And
Yeah.
I'll concur with that later. You'll see.
I'm gonna fourth this Teddy is goated arc, but
Mm-hmm.
I got to play briefly with them for the FlyQuest stream, the Fly Invitational stream.
Oh, the
The
Trailblazer?
Trailblazer.
The Trailblaze. So I got to play with the core of Annie, Habibti, or Amanda, as I know her, and Teddy. And honestly, like, almost ended up joining their squad. Like, they're all super solid individuals. I loved playing with them, and I think something you mentioned, I really agree with. Like, sometimes you just play your best Val when you just don't give a shit, and like,
Yeah.
they kind of give off that like big dick energy vibe of just like like they're just streaming, like Annie's like dead ass just streaming the events, like they don't even care and they're still gonna beat you, so it's kind of scary.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's kind of like that just with anything, to be honest. I think overthinking is one of the worst things you can do, and it just brings up so anxiety. So I think the answer is just to not give a shit about anything.
Well, I agree with that mentality, but I think we're about to take a stark 180 from that. Introducing our next roster, Teddy Tactics.
Oh, now I give a
Uh,
shit.
Now
Yeah,
you,
they give a lot of shits.
This team does, right? This is like the perfect counter example in my mind, and I'll let you take the reins, Ken, because you've also followed this team for a while.
Yeah,
I just love this team and their energy and what they stand for.
yeah, I like Teddy Tactics because I feel like they're not part of the same cauldron as the rest of Game Changers. It feels like I don't know if it's the right word, but they feel more authentic as players, I suppose. And a lot of them are just newer names that don't really run the same, I guess, social circles as the rest of Game Changers, and that might be part of the reason why they stand out so much. But part of, on top of just Ender glazing in general, I think just overall their team compositions are a lot different from what a lot of other GC teams like to bring out, which is usually just diet challengers or VCT comps. And so I think when you look at Teddy Tactics, you can actually see, from the beginning of the game going down to individual microplays, that they actually want to innovate and do things their own way rather than just regurgitating or, like KP said earlier, have those negative feedback loops that a lot of other areas of the Valorant scene has.
Hmm. And I actually got the chance to talk to Ash, the head of Teddy Tactics, the, I guess, founder, about the dynamic and what makes this team what it is. And number one, I want to highlight something that was on the team overview sheet, 5 APs, because this is, I think, why they might not be in the same social circles, is because some of these players, they are, not that not every player in the GC scene has a lot going on in their lives, but right, Ash was in college. Kausushi's a high school student taking 5 AP classes as a senior this year.
Jesus. You know how
I've
many
done
I
that,
took?
right?
I took 0.
How many? Yeah, I took
3 across 2 years.
I took 5, 4, 5. I think I took like 13 or 14.
That sounds terrible.
It was. So I understand the struggle and how much Kausushi is putting in, which I will also comment on later. But this team to me is interesting because, especially when it was like the end of last series, it was a lot of like teams, right, disbanding after each open qualifier, a lot of roster swaps. And this team wants to stick together and wants to grow together. And I'll quote Ash here saying that they highly value creating a positive, safe, and productive environment for players to achieve their goals. They have similar values where they have mutual understanding that improvement comes from sticking together and growing together. And this is another thing, kind of falling back to what you said about Reformed and Passion Project, KP, is that they see each other like a family, right? Kausushi, Ash, they were duos. That's why they started this team, or one of the reasons. They treat each other well. They try to take care of each other, whether it's inside or outside of the game. And it's just a huge thing in my mind that sets them apart just mentally from the rest of the squad of teams, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to take credit for Teddy Tactics as an organization, but
I
I'm
think
going
you
to say
should.
me and Keg were at the event where Ash met Arya. And
Yep.
Oh.
so that was,
we
That's
we
the
brought them
catalyst.
together. We pushed them physically right
we
into each
started
other.
it.
We had the glue in hand, make sure they never let
Yeah.
go from each other. Sorry, it's like super late. My brain is slowly dying. Speaking of brains, do you think Cal's brain is overclocked?
Oh, I think they're big brain. That's all
Has
they
that
are.
Neuralink in there? I mean, 5 AP classes and playing Valorant.
I mean, they just
It's
graduated,
like
so
big brain and like no brain though.
Well, oh yeah, that's true. Wait, which one's the no brain? Is it the AP classes? Because that's how most
Yeah,
of my
obviously
school
they
treated
did.
it.
Like I took 3 APs and I
Do
passed all
AP
of
classes
them.
even do anything realistically?
they get you college
you
credit
ahead in
sometimes.
college.
Ooh, college.
Yeah.
Not. It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
you're an art student.
That is true. That is true.
No, it does because I
True.
don't have to take any math because I took AP
Oh,
stats.
you know what? I still haven't graduated college because I need a math class. Damn.
You should take an AP stats.
I should have. You know, I absolutely would have passed it. If I can't pass 7th grade math, I'm sure I can pass AP math.
Yeah, stats is easy. It's fine. It's just numbers. But
If it's like
less
VLR, I can
intimidating
do it.
numbers. Yeah.
Well,
But VLR is fun, but I think Teddy Tactics is an interesting team to watch because, you question how much, you never question how much. Sorry, they care about the game because they play their own style. They play it confidently. So I just think they're an interesting team to watch because it's like I feel like they're probably my favorite pick for a team to not run this bog standard Ascent comp, and I really want to see it happen because I hate Ascent and I want to see it die.
Everybody
and I want to see
does.
someone. I want to see someone run something other than Jet, Omen, KO, Sova, KJ.
you would
and
love
changing KJ to-
GC EMEA.
And
They have
changing
a
it to
lot of
Cypher
Phoenix
doesn't
players.
count. Changing
They have a-
KJ
they
to
have a bunch
Cypher
of
doesn't
Phoenix
count for
players.
shit.
I think kind of a final thing about Teddy Tactics as well is like they're just gonna be fun to watch because
Yeah.
For
you kind of have a team that everyone wants to root for, whether it's like they're placing bets on the match or they just want to see the underdog win. Like they're gonna be so fun to watch for that aspect. And I remember like for them to go from kind of that team you play against in like first round of qualifier playoffs and like you would just see them, whether it was like us or V1 playing them or whoever it was, like kind of get breezed through, to see them stick it out and now be in the main event. It kind of
Mhm.
gives me like a hope this isn't spoilers, but I think it's been long enough in the Into the Spider-Verse when Spot goes from like the villain of the week to like the ultra villain of the main character. Like,
It's crazy because I haven't seen that movie.
oh, I'm so sorry. But,
At this
Just
point,
bleep
just
them
wait
out
for the
and
third
post.
one.
but anyways, could be such a cool story for them. Like ultra underdog of the event.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's sorry. I was gonna say, yeah, that's the perfect title for them. They almost didn't even qualify,
Mm-hmm.
right? They are the last seed. They're the 8th seed, and this is because Mises Cuties isn't participating in main event, which again we'll touch on later. It's a big heat point.
I was just
so
wanting to bounce something.
they're just happy
off
to
of
be
what
there.
KP was saying.
Go for it.
And you were talking earlier about the Sisyphus kind of for your own team, but I think the joke always, because I'm pretty close with a lot of the people at Teddy Tactics, especially
Yeah.
I've talked to Ash a lot, being one of the first people I've met in esports. The joke was that Teddy Tactics never gets grouped, and you mentioned that they were the first team to make it out of, or they were always the second team to make it out of groups, and then the team that would get sent home first in the bracket in the old stage of where it was the GSL groups and last year's format of GSL groups and
Mm-hmm.
like a 32 team bracket or something. But they were like always the first team to get sent home in the bracket stage, but they never got grouped. And then seeing them this year where they're making it further into tournaments, they are doing that steady improvement that I think a lot of people who are watching really want to see from some of these teams, and they don't ever get to see that. And a lot of teams never get to see that growth because after, they are that first team to get swept out of groups, they get out of groups and then they're there, they go boom and they hit the button and they're all go their separate ways. Duo goes one way, duo goes another way, and another solo goes somewhere else. And this is kind of the interesting thing of Teddy Tactics. Is part of it is that they're the one team that isn't at the top that stayed together.
I will bet you
And that's a really interesting
$5
thing
they
for
go to
me.
LAN.
Like GCC land?
Yep. I'm not even joking.
No, I can see it. They
Yeah, they're going to,
everybody else disbands, so then their points get voided.
Yeah, they're going to Los Angeles. It's in Los Angeles this year. I'm calling it.
Yeah, like they got the strats ready. Like they have the storyline, not the strats necessarily, but the storyline's there. Everything is scripted, right? and I just
Shades of
happened to get it
2023.
early.
They would have the
23
best
easy.
esports movie, I agree. But I think the last topic to address for this team, which combines two things, like you said, is that this team's analysis, and also you said Ender Clout or Ender Glazing. All right.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Or-
I actually asked the team about this because I was curious, because there was that tweet from Ender very recently that said, I have a main event team and I wasn't even there. And it's funny that they said that, because when I actually talked to the team, they said they really like this unique coaching strategy, because Ender puts in the time. Even when they're traveling across the world, they VOD review and send notes until 5 a.m. is what their players have told me. And they also, I'll quote some of the players, said that the fact that they are more of a detached coaching style, specifically from Chip, they say that it ensures that they, give me a second, that they're focused in practice trying to accomplish their goals, and that they're holding each other accountable for growth. And then also, that's what Kalsushi said. And then Chip said that without having the coach there, it requires them to be a lot more vocal, direct, and they've had to step up and take talks as a team in terms of what to figure out, how to take fights, and just develop their communication. So it's definitely cool to me to see how it changes things. And with Ender actually being one of the talent featured on Game Changers, I'm sure it's going to be a similar style in their of how they compete in this event.
Yeah, and KP, I think you can speak a lot on this too, is that sometimes coaches get a little too micromanagey and like to baby their teams in timeouts. And there's different schools of thoughts that can come out through timeouts, whether that be to take like a mental reset, just let your team breathe for a little bit, or just being like, well, actually, I would have done that if I were playing, or just generally helping the team facilitate strategies going into the next few rounds.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot to it. Luckily, I mean, in my time at GC with Rob, Finn, Duke, Remote, all my GC coaches have been phenomenal. We've trialed some coaches that were buns and that gave me like major red flags. But yeah, they're much more than like Ender can be the vibes merchant, right? Like things that we don't see that may not be strategical. Maybe it's just someone taking a pause and the coach like literally doing a minute breathing session with the team. Like I have had weird tack timeouts where sometimes that's just what you need. Like I've had a tack timeout where like Rob got us to think about like one of our like favorite moments, or like think about like playing at home and like just being at our home environment and chilling, like being with your dog if you have a dog, or being with your family, like stuff like that can just take your mind out of the stress of like an 11-11 map 3 situation, or some crazy shit like that. Like yeah, it's definitely something that Ender could be insane at. Like and maybe we see more tweets about it after the event.
I'm hoping. But we did accidentally skip a team. And it's a team in my mind that cannot be glossed over, because they also have had an interesting development towards the end of their season, which is Floppers, all right? This is a team that you might not recognize the name, but you'll recognize the players. They were, SNG signed by YFPX, and now we covered, right, the departure of YFPX from the scene, but we cannot leave the players behind. And this squad, in my mind, the best way to sum them up is this is their final ride, and they're going to take
so fucking
any
depressing.
team. No. Like they're thinking of leaving competing after this event, but they are lethal, and so they're going to basically take down other teams with them, right? Like you said, KP, one bad main event and your chances of the season are over. Like they put up numbers, they've beaten some of the highest caliber teams, evidence being Cozy Clash. It's just a very unique and different squad in my mind, and they've also adopted some, lost puppies from Paul Pals of Rise and Bunny Bee just to strengthen their roster and round it out. So I would be scared of this squad just because of like you said, they don't give a shit when they're coming into this event. They're here just to have fun and also just play to play.
I don't like the gloat very often, but I will say back when we were doing those, what was it called, like the qualifier streams for Cozy Clash, I watched Supernova and I called right away that they were gonna win the whole event. Like the way they
Sheesh.
played was so good. None of the other talent believed me. I had to fight every day at that lane and be like, no, watch SNG, they will win. And they won. But it's like, I think just the way each individual player played so well was really just such a great chemistry dynamic. And having to talk to people like the coach, what was it, Trollman, right after, talking to Bunny B in person and like finding out their stories, it's like, damn, they really do care compassionately about not casting, about playing and being a part of this environment and stuff. And I'm really sad that they weren't picked up by other teams, because I think every player there absolutely deserves it. I think any of them in that proper environment can be a top 10 player in GC.
Well, you mentioned Trollman, and that was something I wanted to speak on as well. I said that, we have Rise, we have Bunny B coming into the roster to compete under Floppers, but with that, we also had some departures, and that's something I wanted to discuss really quickly, actually looking at Twitter, is that we had Trollman, right, their coach, after being with this team for 7 months, announced that they're moving forward, looking for other positions. You also had, right, Marina, right after Open Qualifier number 3, also stepping away from this squad. Fortunately, Marina did find a spot as a sub under another main event team. Which team it is, top of my head. Actually, pull it up really fast. And grab for you. They are subbing for Mesos Millionaires, this main event. And it just shows that, right, like this is another team that tried to stick together, tried to weather the storm, maybe similar to Teddy Tactics, but they finally feel like they are hitting that ceiling, perhaps, which is a scary thought. But I'm excited to see what the coach, what Trollman will do, what Marina will do. And this spot, right, holds a special place in my heart as well, because when I was trying to learn more about like the player perspective or the back end, I got to sit in on some of their scrims. And what they worked on was just basically the base level of being a team, right? Just communications, calming, utility usage, how to coordinate fights. Like they would go back to the basics during their scrims because they trusted more in their IGLing of Panday. They trusted at the higher level of gameplay and just really needed to simplify and focus on some of those micro adjustments to perfect maybe the promise that you had seen, Keg.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bunny B is an incredible player, and Bunny B promised to carry me in ranked and never did.
Dang.
So same with Unstable. I'm still waiting on those two.
This is why I don't make anyone carry me in ranked, because
You
I just
can carry
don't play
me in
ranked.
Well, actually,
I
it's
just don't
funny.
play
This goes way back to the FlyQuest, right? Because Lacey had to leave because of her wrist injury. I have the same wrist injury as her right now, and look,
no.
it sucks. It sucks a lot, so I don't blame her at all. So hopefully they can carry me even harder than normal now in my head, maybe in my dreams, because it's pretty much impossible to play Valorant at this point.
You have to play at like 6,000 DPI.
Well, no, that's the problem.
Imagine.
That's the problem, because I was a part of the alpha testing for Marvel Rivals, and I put my DPI and sensitivity so low that like I had to do this. Oh, I just went to a new tab. I had to do this to move 180 degrees. I didn't know that would mess up your arm. It gave me a great bicep workout, but the entire tendon of my arm is like, I hope it's not destroyed. That would suck, but it was broken for a bit. It's a little bit better now. Like if I play one session of Valorant, I can't play for 2 more days.
And the last comment I really have about this squad is I was kind of looking at the agents these players have been playing this series. I was really confused because they had like 3 initiator mains, and I was like, who's gonna play duelist? And I'm thinking we might see the Bunny B duelist come back. They used to play Raze and Jet, but when they were subbing in for teams and a little bit quieter in competitions this series, they were playing initiator. So I'm hoping that's where they will fall into place. But maybe we'll see like agent role changes out of left field. We'll have to wait and see. That's the question marker, I guess. The thing to keep an eye on for that squad.
They did that back in Cozy Clash too. They would just bring out random ass agents, and it worked really well. I think.
Well, they brought out the Yoru.
Yeah, they brought the Yoru. They also brought out, and Sage on Ascent is like whatever, but it worked well enough to confuse teams to make it win.
I think one last thing as well is actually Edith was playing with this squad in the past event as well, and I think something that's going to be interesting to watch, like the storyline for this team for me, is if it's their last ride. Do Rise and Bunny B click with the core's playstyle better than Edith and Marina did? Because playing against this team in the past, any team that's IGL'd by Panday, they will get in your face. Like they are very much
Mhm.
like on ascent, pushing B main every damn round, like pushing A main every damn round. The team as well, fundamentally, it is a different style. It's very comparable to Paper X, where they just take a lot of 1v1 duels, and if they're winning their duels on that given day, they will look like the best team by far. Like they will just peek, kill you, get out, peek, kill you, get out, over and over and over again, and punish teams that don't use util properly or like aren't hitting their shots. On the other edge of that sword, though, the problem we've seen with this team in the past, because I believe they made main event, the core of this squad made main event of GC1, but went out 7th to 8th or 5th to 6th, somewhere in the bottom 4, is when that style isn't working for them, when a team is punishing them by hitting their shots, using proper util, pushing them off their peaks, we see these games snowball out of control for this squad. So I'm curious, do Rise and Bunny B bolster that play style, or are we going to see the same like clash of ideas on this new squad?
And I think it's really easy as like an omnipresent caster to be like, oh, well, why don't they just adapt? But it's like, it's so hard to recognize when that's even happening to yourself too when you're in the middle of playing. And it's also like, if that's your fundamental style as like a team, it's so hard to switch to a complete different style on the fly once you recognize that happening too.
Right, right.
Hmm. Well, with that, we've introduced all 8 teams competing in main event. And to go back through that list, it's going to be Passion Project, Shopify Rebellion, Reformed GC, FlyQuest Red, Solstice, Mesos Millionaires, Floppers, and Teddy Tactics in the order of seeding. But we're just getting started here, bringing you guys up to speed on the Game Changers scene before main event number 2. So we're going to throw to a quick break, but when we get back, I'll get to discuss a little bit deeper into how those open qualifiers went and maybe place these teams into some power rankings. So stick around.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed that first bit. We've got some more bits for you, like crazy, crazy, really funny bits. Um, but you know, we're gonna just kind of dive right into talking about the qualifiers, getting you up to speed, pun intended, on just what brought us here to the main event, and what better place to start there than the first open qualifier. So I'm just gonna show you all the bracket real quick. Um, I'm gonna cut out this part here because I think a lot of these teams we're not gonna be talking about here. But just looking at the bracket, does anything stand out to anyone? Other than the fact that I think a lot of people were seeing FlyQuest as the uh,
Mhm.
the favorites and they lost in the semis. But other than that, I mean, almost
Where's
everything.
Shopify?
Hmm. Honestly, I think this
Yeah, that was
Passion
the big
Project
thing.
org is the best org I've seen yet.
For real. They must be
PP
I
passionate.
would buy
Rising.
stocks in them.
Yeah.
Also, I know it's Paul Pals, but that's Misa's cuties.
Yeah. Or what other people came to know them as probably was I think Decimate as well for that
They're the main event, yeah.
4 days that they were Decimate. But I did want to show off the top 10. We love Pedro and showing off the top 10 here of top 10 players. At least in the third day. So the bracket of teams is gonna be a little bit smaller at that point. But also the competition may be a little bit closer. You're not going to be seeing as many like 13-2s, 13-4s in day 3 of the tournament. But I mean, if you notice, there's 2 teams on here, and then 1 Passion Project member as well. But FlyQuest and Mises Cuties pretty much just absolutely covering the scoreboard here, which is a little bit interesting.
I agree, because you'll notice when we get to like open qualifier number 3 later on, that it really diversifies a little bit later. Whether this is because maybe some of these teams have qualified already, or with some of the roster splits that happen, or maybe if it's even just evidence of the scene developing a little bit more. But yeah,
I wanted to point out that Passion Project, despite being the winners of the event, only had 1 member on this scoreboard here, this
I know,
leaderboard.
right?
Yeah, it's really weird because I was just thinking about this when I looked at the graphic. It's like you'd expect like the top 3 teams to have pretty consistent players across the board on overall player stats, but only having like 1 player there really shows how big of a difference there is.
Mm-hmm. Well, like we said, open qualifier number 1, pretty straightforward. Shopify was getting ready for Red Bull Instalock, and you also mentioned KP with 3 events. They don't necessarily need to compete in all 3 of them because they don't have too many obstacles. I think we said when we introduced the team that they are undefeated this season with a 15-match streak, whether that was from the open quals and the main event number 1 in Series 1 to now open or qualifying now for main event. But other than that, I think some things to note was floppers. I think that was right before they got picked up by YFPX, so it was like in between SNG letting them go and YFPX picking them up. They were known as OK, and they also made it to the quarterfinals. So again, stability from a lot of squads. I will point out, because there's 2 teams that I want to highlight that didn't make main event that were really close contenders. One was Kinetic, right? They were previously known as the Boys. I think at least the core was. And they competed in main event number 1, but had a little bit more rough of a season. I think, didn't they go up against Reformed maybe in open qualifier 2, if I remember correctly? We'll get there later, KP, and you can confirm. And then also Friends, which you might recognize actually Keg some names on, like Kami
Yeah.
and Rain.
Kami's the sister I never had.
For real. So those are 2 squads that I consistently saw, and like I would love to see a main event, but just fell short.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the GC blender. There's just so many different players and different formations of teams that I'd like to see, 50 different players succeed and be in the top team or the winning team for
True.
GC. And I don't know, there's never really been like any tournament I've ever seen or any league I've seen that's like that. I mean, I guess you could argue like FGC tournaments are kind of like that, but they're not teams. Those are individuals. And GC almost kind of feels like it's an FGC tournament with 2 teams of 5.
Mm. Also, I didn't even realize my screen share was on, but I was, in fact, I am still on Open Qualifier number 1, so look at me go. I think the only other things to point out in my mind would be like any of the relationships that we see previous matches that like will become relevant in main event. Like for example, Mesos Millionaires is what knocked out Reformed so early on in Open Qualifier number 1 when you brought that up previously, right? So that's something cool to look at. Obviously, I had a Passion Project beating FlyQuest Red. We had Kinetic beating Teddy Tactics. Like I said, Kinetic was a really promising team here, just short on points. So you can see, I think later on we'll see like a relationship between Kinetic and Reformed. So then you can get kind of a head to head between like Teddy Tactics and Reformed. So these are kind of things you can look at. You can also see here, right, a 2-1 between Floppers and Solstice. So maybe a head to head to look forward to in main event later on. But
I
I
mean,
guess that means we can move on. Yeah, go for it.
I think it's just so hard to look at past stats sometimes of GC teams to say like one team's definitively better than the other.
Oh
Like
yeah, I agree.
you could look at those and say like there's an advantage or disadvantages like all you want, but I feel like there's so many external factors that come into GC specific and like, you know, again, the way teams change and how dynamics change a lot throughout one qualifier to another that it's like I always approach GC as in like almost as if like a brand new clean slate every qualifier or every main event.
I think also it does bring up the fact that we're using, the single elim format for that bracket, and you wonder how far Reform maybe could have gotten in a lower bracket run. You do wonder maybe how far Teddy Tactics could have possibly gone, or Kinetic, or any of these other teams that you're bringing up could possibly have gotten a lower bracket run. And, sometimes you just get matched up against the wrong team in a single elim format, and your run ends early because you just ran into a team that matched up way better against
Ooh.
you than you want.
I just got an interesting question. Okay, KP.
Hmm.
Outside, let's pretend Shopify slash C9 never existed, or maybe they even did exist. What was the literal hardest team you've ever faced up against as a competitor?
Besides that number 1 of like C9 West?
Yeah, because I feel like that's the given answer, but like, you know, to make it spicy.
In GC or in all competing?
I
Probably
guess for
NA.
yeah, I guess just for competing in
NAGC?
general. I mean, if we want to count international, I'd be down for that too. But
God.
because I feel like there
That's
could
a
be.
tough one because rosters changed so much. There I had a personal team I despised playing against for their play style, but then I had a team that like I think was just objectively the hardest team to play against. So team that I despised playing against because I thought their play style was like so unlike how I think Valorant should be played was TSMX. Like back then, like they just sat in spawn the whole round, and like if you pushed anything, they would just sit in the spawn till like 20 seconds on the clock, and I remember just like they won because they punished impatience. So they made the game very boring and drawn out, and that's a way to play the game. It works. And then team that I think overall I had the hardest time like playing against from a more team perspective, not just my own opinion, would be the EG GC squad for GC3 last year, because we had to play that team 3 times in the matter of 1 week. So
Dang.
back to back to back, all in the same tournament. We played them in the qualifier, then we played them in the upper quarters, then we played them again in lower consolidation finals. So playing a team 3 times in 1 week it's so rough.
Banger answers.
Thank you,
Amazing.
thank you.
Well, we covered Open Qualifier 1. We got a little KP insight. I'll hand it back to you, actually, KP, to take us through Open Qualifier number 2 a little bit. I know your team made it a little bit further this go around, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah. So if we pull up my screen share, Open Qualifier 2, really nothing crazy going on here. I feel like every result that was expected played out. Like even my own team's result, like we were obviously the underdogs of this match. The most interesting thing to pull that I think to pull from this qualifier was Shopify dropping a map to Mises Cuties, Paw Patrol, whatever we want to label them on Bind, and I think any team looking to take down Shopify is going to see this match. They're going to see this was a 13-6 on Bind, and this just reiterates that Bind has always been a weak map for Shopify Rebellion GC. Even when they were V1, this is a weak map for them. Their statistics obviously look, they have a 74% win rate, but look at the losses, right? Like the wins they're getting are against very much expected teams that they're expected to beat, right? Like Catface, Newt, Berserker's Knight. These are all sort of those group stage first round playoff GC teams that we've talked about. Expected wins. Their losses, however, 6-13 to Mises Cuties, 11-13 to FlyQuest Red, 15-13 to EG. They had a close 13-10 against us, another 13-11 against Newt. I just think this is showing a weakness for them consistently on Bind against any team that has the firepower to take them to this map. Besides that, though, this qualifier was pretty clean. Like I said, like nothing special here. Shopify dropped again another map to FlyQuest Red in finals, but it's like I said earlier, like they had just flown back from Red Bull in London, and so they're playing this event literally on maybe a day of sleep and adjusting back to the North American time zone. So I don't think there's anything crazy to look at here. I think this was just a couple slip-ups, a couple Valorant-esque maps, and that's about it. I mean, FlyQuest Red, on the other hand, performed pretty well. I think our series against them was quite close, like going the distance on Bind, but they seem to bounce back quite well against YFPX. It was close, but taking the clean 2-0, and I mean that's another team that is in the main event. So overall, simple qualifier, expected results.
To bounce off that point, right? I'm pretty sure the map C9 White had to forfeit over Immortals was also Bind, so it's just eternally unlucky.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like you said, Open Qualifier 2. I will make note of the fact that Open Qualifier 2 was a little bit different than the other qualifiers because it wasn't that, like, round robin style group stage. It was back to the GSL format because there weren't enough registrations. So there was a lot of, like, direct shoot into the playoffs as well. So that might have benefited Shopify as well because then they didn't have to play as many matches when, like you said, they were tired. They were readjusting their sleep schedule. But then we move on to Open Qualifier number 3, which I personally loved, just because, right, with Passion Project out, with Shopify Rebellion out, yes, you still had FlyQuest Red, the other signed org, with their grand finals, curse. But you got to see the rise of a lot of free agent dominating teams, right? Or like teams that really hadn't made it into deeper playoffs before, and they were still like taking maps off, having close series. I feel like this was one of the more competitive events we had, where even when it was 2-0s, it was
It was
pretty
fun.
close, right? Like, we don't ignore that. And it was definitely fun to cover. And I mean, we got to know the teams, I feel like, a lot more through interviews, right? Like you said, we got to interview Slanty and see how it was IGLing with them for the first time. I got to talk to, Maceless Millionaires while trying to get interviews with them. And it showed in my mind how competitive the scene is getting. But what I know you were in Japan, Callie, but Keg,
What's up?
You helped analyze some of these matches, and KP, you got to watch your team kind of dominate and sail through. Another thing this was the debut of Clove as well, so we had some nice compositions coming out.
Yeah, I mean, really the big takeaway from Clove was just Teddy and seeing how people played early Clove. I mean, it's always kind of hard to judge.
Melia did too, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, when you think of Clove,
Yeah.
I think of Teddy most specifically. But like, there's
Yeah,
not
fair.
really a lot that you could take away from just Clove specifically on the first day. It's people still trying to figure out how they work and like, the attributes in a actual competitive environment. It's like how almost a year later, teams are still, maybe not so much now, but for the longest time avoided Sunset because it was new and scary and no one wanted to do things that are new and scary. So, I mean, it was good. I'm glad GC teams are looking to experiment more. It's more than what VCT has really done recently. So it's like, okay, cool. We need to see more fun things like that. But Now, also, granted, it's midnight, and my analyzing brain's a little bit more diminished than usual.
Well, the only other thing to point out, which is one of the big points I wanted to touch on during Up to Speed, is that you don't notice Misu's kitties here. You have Paw Pals, yes, but Paw Pals, it was not the three-person really core. You had Bunny Bee stepping back into competing for the first time in this series. You did have, Zan and Carrie, but then you had Super Cat, who also had taken a backseat to competing. You had Panini, who's only really been subbing in. So this Misu's Cuties core essentially disbanded to Pug, right? You had Misu, right, joined Reform to GC. And because of that, there was actually a development where their points got voided. And they had 52 circuit points. So that would have put them as the 6th seed, sending Teddy Tactics out of main event, which is why when you saw when you saw Teddy Tactics tweet out that they made it, they didn't think they had. And so that was kind of a pleasant surprise to them. And maybe an opportunity. That's also why there was this scramble for players to find new homes, find new rosters, like Misa settling in there, some setting into floppers. And it was just really unfortunate. And it's hard to say if it came out of a miscommunication of the rule set or just a mistake. But it definitely shook things up, especially since, like you said, KP, it puts big pressure on them having a chance at being that main event points 2nd seed contender. So if they want to play, they're gonna have to play to win main event number 3.
Right, 100%. I think that's a really good point to bring up, and something as well that I wanted to touch on from OQ3 was actually I want to dive in a little bit very briefly to the mental aspect that might be happening in the FlyQuest Red camp.
Yes.
Coming over to my screen share really quick. This is something that is a moral concept for me, and not everyone has to agree with it, and that's okay. But in my opinion, if you're a signed player, you tweet when you win, you tweet when you lose. And I just want to show the disparity between OQ2 for FlyQuest Red and OQ3. So let's see OQ2 right here. We've got Thea's tweets. So proud of my teammates. Such fun series today. GG 1-2 Shopify Rebels. So, they dropped the series, but overall, everyone's it seems like in a great spirits. We've got Starbound tweeting, Thea tweeting, Sonder tweeting, Jovi. Everyone's tweeting. It seems like they're very proud of a close series with Shopify. We go into OQ3, and they lose to Reformed. Thea's got no tweet from the event. Saunders tweeting O2 Reformed GC GG's with a period at the end. FlyQuest Red is tweeting heading into GC2 main event as the 4th seed, period, at the end. And these are very small things, but the rest of the squad didn't even tweet, right? And it might seem like a small thing, but I like looking from an outer perspective and looking in, especially like as an analyst, I'm worried. Like, I'm very worried about the mental boom that's happening in the FlyQuest Red camp. Why is no one proud of making 4th seed main event? Like, what's going on in their heads right now to where they were so hyped to have such a close match in one series, and then the next series they're not even tweeting about the event. Just something to keep in mind for these players heading into the main event. And obviously with the rumors we covered earlier and the trialing of players and whatnot, I think it all compounds into this big narrative of like, oh shit, something's going down with FlyQuest Red. And if you're a fan of the team, like I'm worried, right? Like you're seeing your favorite players like not even tweet about the event they just played in. Like that's worrying to me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and I'm sorry, Callie, but that was something I've been, conjuring in my head all throughout today. It's like, I don't have faith in FlyQuest this time around. Like, I have every other time, but when they have that consistent choking in qualifiers or main event grand finals, that alone adds up. But everything we talked about earlier from the business side of FlyQuest 2 and, the trialing, everything that you've said as well, KP, very well put. I think they're gonna bomb out in this tournament, and I think Teddy Tactics are gonna be top 3.
Nice hot take. I'll be the devil's advocate here. I agree. I think a lot of things are working against them, which sucks. But I think when this roster was announced and how they went about building this roster was just so creative and unique in my mind that I think I tweeted, I was like, this is a team that I could see one day beating Shopify. And I do think there are some things, like you said, that are askew in terms of the mental. I know they like made some coaching changes, like they just picked up King Fred, for example, that could help with the assistant coach position. I don't necessarily know if I still believe that it's a team that, you know, could be a world champion team, but I still think there's promise here somewhere. It's just there's something that's I agree that's like whether it's a curse, whether it's like mental block, something's there that's up.
Well, one thing though, really quick, is King Fred's been there since the start.
Mhm.
He's been on the team the whole time. It was just they just like formally announced him.
Formalized it, yeah.
Yeah, but he's been there since the start, so I don't think it's too much of a change up at all.
What's up, Callie?
I was gonna add that I think they're gonna be one of 2 teams in the main event that are gonna be boot camping, right? And they
They are, yeah.
have been probably, and they since maybe they went home, but you were talking about this. We added on to the trialing, so the players maybe not feeling too secure in their spot in the roster, maybe the org not feeling too secure with their spot in the scene. Just a lot of insecurity and just kind of floating around here, and yes, normally bringing your players together is a huge benefit. Like you always want to bring your players together, but is this going to become in less of a bringing your players together to, play together, or is it going to bring them together into a sort of echo chamber where all of this insecurity is going to be bouncing around back to them, and you're bringing them away from their family and maybe other people who are around them who might be able to stabilize them? Like, will this boot camp maybe backfire and make it so that they're in a place where they're around people who they don't know if they're teammates or if they're competing with them to stay on the roster, based on their performance in this next open or in this main event? If they're going to even have a roster in the main event, or if they want to stay together as a 5 because they're all gone. This sort of compounding effect of an echo chamber where the questions that keep you up at night become the questions that hurt you during the day, during practice, during games, and then sort of compounding again into this giant snowball of self-doubt. Will that be the case for Shopify or I mean for FlyQuest, or do they have someone in place that's going to be able to snip that self-doubt plant in the bud and get them going?
I think if they had that, they would have already had it.
Valid. Well, we brought up some hot takes. We've already discussed where we think teams are going to fall. Teddy Tactics top 3 from Keg. So I think that's a great parallel, or I guess transition in from our open qualifiers discussion into power rankings, where we are going to, butt heads a little bit. Let's try and get these teams where we think they're going to fall. Now, this is not necessarily predicting where they're going to end up on the bracket, because we'll look at that later. This is more just who we think is, I guess, quote unquote the best. I guess power is more like what's behind their roster, what they're capable of. So I have no clue. It's my first time doing power rankings like this, of where to start. Like, do we start with the bottom, the top? Do we want to just like spread the teams out based on if you think they're on the left or the right side? How do we want to tackle this, guys?
I think it's
Who
easiest
has
to
the
go
most
top
aura?
down. The most
Top down?
aura?
Aura?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Aura
which
in
team
my
has
mind
the
is
most
Teddy
free?
Tactics. But like power, Shopify, it's just like all over the place.
If we do this off most aura, someone will screenshot this out of context on Twitter, and
That's true.
we will look like the worst analysts if it's based
No.
off that.
No, what if we're the most goated analysts?
We could
We
split
get it
it.
right
We
accidentally.
could split it between 2 different ones, but
We do
I
it based off
agree.
of best main event announcement.
Some of the
That-
people haven't
yeah.
even announced.
Then
They
they
just,
get
like-
they get F tier.
They just like
I'm sorry.
retweeted the esports NA one, didn't they? So 8, no.
I think normally I would say, like, when I'm ranking food, I go bottom up to give myself
Okay.
room for a better food option. But I agree with Keg here. I think top down will be easier for this
Okay.
instance.
I think also we can always kick people down. It's not like we're putting
That's true,
them in
that's
there.
true.
They
I
have, we're not
mean-
writing this in Sharpie.
Yeah, I mean
Yes,
we
we can move them.
You just write it on our screens.
I'll right click and lock it, guys. No, I'm joking.
I
I
mean,
think
Okay, well, then let's start with number 1. Any objections? No, I'm joking.
Shopify.
Obvious.
All right,
Yeah.
all right.
I really want to give a hot take and say not number one, but there's really no reason not to put them there.
There's
Yeah.
no world in which you can't rank them number one, regardless of if they perform lower than this.
Yeah.
There is nothing against saying that they're number one right now.
Unless Fluorescent
Yeah.
pulls a Benedict Arnold and goes to the British, I think there's no way they don't win.
I think
True.
they just announced the roster, so I think we're good. The rosters have been locked, and they don't have a substitute player registered. So, all right, then I feel like this section is where things get dicey for us. And I'll throw up three teams right now that are potential contenders. Right? It's these three in my mind.
Okay.
But let me spread these
Yep.
out so we can see all the teams.
Yeah.
Any like digressions that like
Yeah,
It might
I
be these, just
got
the
a few
order?
disagreements here. Passion
I know
Project.
you want this one up there.
Yeah, Passion.
Not this order. Just I think they're gonna be somewhere here.
Yeah, I'm still disagreeing. So Passion Project is number 2.
Okay, this is Keg's proposal. I'm gonna
Yep.
put them like halfway on. Okay.
Teddy Tactics is 3.
Okay.
Reformed is 4. FlyQuest
Okay.
is 5 or 6.
All right. I think for me,
I don't know about. I love Teddy
So-
Tactics, but I don't.
I
know
love Teddy
about-
Tactics.
Y'all are
I'm-
sleeping on
I'm
Teddy.
I'm gonna start with this. I think I'm seconding Passion Project at 2. I think
I am as
Yep,
well.
yep.
I do
so.
too.
I think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah.
I think Passion Project has proven to me through winning the qualifier and through the co-ed events
Mhm.
and because I've heard good things about them in scrims, and I know their coach is a good coach, or former coach is a good coach. It's just obvious too for me.
They've got good bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The foundation is strong. So
Mhm.
I think for me, I agree with everything we said about these first 2 seeds. I think I still want to keep Solstice in the mix here, just because they put up good numbers against other squads. I feel like for me, it's like Teddy Tactics is like somewhere with 5 or 6 with Fly
Nah,
Quest Red.
trust.
I-
And I would
No!
put like this is
I-
what I would do personally. Would be like Reformed 3, Solstice 4,
Breaking
then,
my
like,
heart.
something like this is where I'm at kind of.
one
But then
one
again,
thing-
these teams are insane.
So I do want to point this out.
Go for it.
Reformed has to go through Shopify in their bracket, and FlyQuest does not. FlyQuest is on opposite side of bracket as Shopify, and I think that like almost guarantees them a top 3 placing. Just
I
from
will agree with you, but that's why we're doing power rankings, because I've done separate brackets where I tier people like based on like the teams and where I think they fall versus like where the bracket puts them. I think this
Right.
is supposed to be try to be independent from who they're head to head against in the bracket, because we'll do a bracket prediction later as well.
I think as well though, I still would put, because when competitors in GC play against the signed teams, there is that fear factor. Like people
Okay.
genuinely get nervous playing against Shopify. Like people
Yeah,
will
I agree.
not fight the way they fight, not swing things, have no confidence, and I think that plays a part for FlyQuest as well. Given they're the only other team getting paid in the region, people are scared to play them. Like they have good individual players, and although they're not in a stride right now, I still think they're a team that like I think you can rely on, and I would comfortably put them at least in the top 4, at least 4th. I don't see them being below 4. That's my mind. Like
I still okay. I was gonna touch on this later because the first matchup obviously is FlyQuest versus Solstice, but they faced off, and I want to say it was like 13-10, 13-10, and like Solstice they picked up Nora. So I it's so hard between these 3 teams in my mind.
Can I give
Okay,
another
let me
hot
ask you this-
take?
Yeah, go for it.
Number 1, Shopify. Number 2, Passion Project. Number 3, Teddy Tactics. Number 4,
You
Floppers.
said that.
Number 5, Solstice. And number 6, FlyQuest.
You're just a FlyQuest hater at this point.
I
Keg.
love
I'm not
FlyQuest.
too late.
I love
I think
FlyQuest.
Reformed has to be top
FlyQuest is
3,
the
though.
dad I never had. I think their org is amazing. I'm just disappointed in what they've been
Ooh.
doing.
I think
I
if we're gonna
think-
go with the mental boom narrative, we kind of have to put FlyQuest at 5.
I think I agree with
think
that.
Reformed 3. I think I
I'm
for
I'll
thinking-
sure.
take
I'm thinking-
Reformed at
I'm
3.
thinking
I will
this.
Give me a
settle. I
second.
will compromise.
Let's do I'm thinking this.
And I will say as well,
Yeah.
as much as I'm rooting for them, objectively, Teddy Tactics is 8th. Like
Nah,
for sure.
nah,
for
trust,
sure. Like,
trust.
because the individuals, like even looking at like past placements, like just raw power ranking, no brackets, like the
Yeah.
individuals on floppers and mesos, way more experience and deep tournament runs than the players on Teddy. The players on Teddy Tactics, this is their first time in a main event, so I think objectively they have to be 8th. Like
The lights
You
are
ever watched-
bright.
You ever watch the movie Rocky?
You ever seen the NBA Finals?
You ever
No,
watch
I'm-
Rocky?
I'm
That's my
rooting for them.
setup.
I'm
What if it's
rooting
like
for them. I'm just saying.
I love
Like-
Mesa. I'm sorry, Teddy is Fluffies on this team. Like I cannot put them 8th in my mind. Like I'm
Yeah,
like, I
you're
feel
right.
like
They
it's
should be
like-
4th.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard because like
I feel like 5th is a tie. Like FlyQuest,
Like,
Mesos, and
my
Floppers
issue
are
is we
all
haven't
Yeah.
even talked about how Miso's Cuties was like consistently 3rd and 2nd place, right? And that like they have like Bunny and Rise on this team. So even though they haven't played with the core and like you mentioned KP that we haven't like seen how they're gonna react to that play style, it could be like picturesque and all the
Oh.
stars aligning and they could like skyrocket through the bracket and like I said be that disruption that like to all
Uh-huh.
of these teams.
100%. Floppers could like smoke everyone in the event. Like
Yeah,
It's just
floppers
weird
So we
'cause
think like
is a wild
so we
card.
think
I mean,
I love Teddy. I don't
Can
want to put
can
them
we
at 8.
invent a new
but we
number?
are, but we're putting numbers on these teams. But in reality, I
Uh-huh.
feel like it's 1, 2, and then 3 through 8.
No, you forgot about Teddy.
I think in my
They're on
mind
their own
there's
tier.
there's a gap. There's a gap. It's 1, 2, 3 gap.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then all these teams, Solstice, FlyQuest Red, Floppers, Mesos, are all 5th. Like if it was Mario Kart, they're all crossing the finish line at the
Yeah.
same time.
Well, you know
Like,
what? That means Teddy has a blue shell.
Oh, no,
Listen,
Bullet
listen,
Bill. It's gonna
again-
skyrocket them into the lead.
For anyone watching and any Teddy players or fans, I am rooting for you guys. I want you
Me
guys
too.
to win.
yeah.
Just analyst power rankings.
Yeah.
They've
Purely off
got to
power.
be 8th. Yeah, they've got to be
Just
8th.
based,
Like,
Guys-
it's just pure firepower. Not talking about any of the other like factors that might come into play. Pure firepower. If we're still counting the mental boom, I guess a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that we're confident in this.
If we're talking about
So-
pure firepower, floppers is 2.
I feel like if we're talking about firepower, I think I would put Floppers higher. Just because,
But
like
if we're
I
talking
said,
pure firepower, FlyQuest has to be higher too. But
No.
then how do you bring teams down though? It's like the
Like
problem is we're having right now is we're trying
this-
to bring
this-
we're trying to bring teams up, but we can't pull the same teams down.
like I
We're
feel
trying
like
to
Yeah.
bring
these
this
two,
up,
if we're
we
looking
can't
at
pull another down
power,
from this side.
I feel like firepower wise, Solstice would be lower, but like I said, they've been really strong together. Maybe it would be like
I think
4
think-
and then like 5 and 6. It'd be like this in my mind.
yeah, I kind of wait.
It'd be like that to
I
me.
I like that, but FlyQuest at 5th and
Think-
Solstice at 6th.
You still think Solstice below?
I still think so. Just
Firepower, I would
looking-
agree.
Looking at the individuals and the storylines, like keep in mind the FlyQuest Red mental boom.
Yeah.
That's the unknown.
It
of
could
the
work for
event.
them, yeah. It's either gonna
Like-
deter or work for them.
Exactly. Like what if we come into the event and FlyQuest Red, they all get in person together in LA and Jovi talks to the team. He's like, guys, like ignore the fucking rumors, ignore what people are saying on Twitter, ignore that we didn't win a single the open qualifier when we're the only other team that gets paid. Ignore all that shit and let's play our game. Like let's do our best. And all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh my god, Jovi, you're a genius. You're
No,
so right."
Jovi would
And
have to give him
they're
a ton of
back. Like,
peyote and make him go on a spirit quest.
I'm just saying, like crazier things
possible.
have happened. Yeah,
It
it's
is.
possible, and I think while it's fun to be contrary, I think there's also merit to like in a power ranking, going with our gut knowledge.
I
on
like this.
I like this.
I like what we
think
have.
I do like where we're at.
This looks good to me.
Like if we think about like where they were prior, because they made main event, like they fell a little bit earlier. Like you said, they were 5th, 6th team, and then we add in that 3rd place element of Misu's Cuties in the mix. It does bring them up a few spots. So
Yeah.
It's good.
So we should all just smile for the Clippers and the screenshotters.
because guys, yeah, we're gonna smile. Then we'll make like a fake one where it's like, we're just gonna just really fast for the memes, just gonna for Keg's sake, Keg smile.
Yes.
Wait. We have to put Shopify in like a believable spot. They've got to be like
No, that's the
Six.
point.
They've got to be like 6th.
Yeah, 6.
We did it,
Anyways,
chat.
Where's
We
my
did it,
blindfold?
Ender
So I can
Glazers.
pretend that I didn't see any of this.
guys, we also are gonna do a bracket later, so that's where we'll get to see like the head-to-heads and where we think people will actually face, like when they come up against Shopify and all that. So we can put them like next to each other later on. But I like this idea. Like I said, I feel like floppers could be that disruption to teams like FlyQuest that need those points to maybe qualify over, some of these like free agent teams. But otherwise, I mean, any objections, or are we all? It's like ayes, nays, speak now or forever hold your peace kind of deal.
Are we
for
married?
I mean, they're all
Floppers
just bunched up
in.
together.
I like this. I like this, and
Yeah.
I agree with everything Callie said so far in this segment. I think great points all around.
Except for
Well.
Teddy, but whatever.
Ken,
think
you'll prove us wrong.
objectively,
I know.
as
When
much
they
as we
win
like
main
them,
event.
I did
we
a
do
Cozy
like
Clash,
them.
so I'll do it again.
I mean, my note for that is like, Kalsushi just graduated, so they've had more time also to prep with the team. So it's
Yeah,
like they've been
AP
scrimming, but
GCology.
AP class and game changers and Valorant.
AP changing the
mechanics.
game.
Well, there you have it then, guys. Our power rankings first. Again, this isn't necessarily the head-to-heads because obviously these teams could knock each other out really early on or knock them to the lower bracket, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But in the meantime, we are going to ensure that you guys are adequately taking breaks that we are as well, so our voices don't die on you guys during the Up to Speed podcast. So grab something to drink, use the restroom, take a breather, and when we come back, we're going to move on to some more fun segments where we maybe reveal our player favorites and our dream teams. So stick around. and we are back. Other than KP, previous world champion had a dip. They're a little busy, new job at Riot and all, but well, they'll be back in to give their opinions here time and time again. But we're moving on to some more fun segments, guys. We took you through the informational, and now we're getting to, maybe the kind of I said the more fun ones because it's kind of our, I guess, interpretations of the scenes and what we enjoy. Starting out with our top 3 spotlights. So this is basically not necessarily our top 3 players of the event, but the top 3 players to keep an eye out for. So I'm going to be starting us off here. So we'll go ahead and hit that reveal. And my top 3 players to keep an eye out for are going to be Starbound, Kalsushi, and it's gonna be drum roll please, Teddy is Fluffy. Now I will go ahead and explain Starbound. First and foremost, I'm a simp for. There's a clip of me on Twitch about that. Now we're mutuals on Twitter, so W there. They also haven't had as much time to prep with the rest of the squad during this boot camp, just because they haven't been feeling that well. But then also, I have a clip for you guys here. They just earned the play of main event number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you guys here so you can see exactly why.
So far, it's just a great way to play some basic split that works in their favor. I mean, these guys are going to get demolished right now and try to get into this A site with this trap kills that's coming up from Starbound.
Starbound can't be stopped. 4th kill. The ace, maybe? Sekia in trouble. Oh,
So yeah, that was honestly such a fun one. I feel like to just clip to watch in general for me in my mind. And then for my second player, Kalsushi, again, big brain, 5 AP classes. They also, if we go back to my screen share, were the top 3 in in open qualifier number 3. So the event that they just played. And so they've just been stepping up. And like I said, they just graduated. So graduation buff perhaps, or maybe more time to focus. And then for Teddy is Fluffy, just my collegiate GOAT. When I first met them, it was through collegiate events, and then right afterwards they got signed, and then again they just didn't get time to bloom into themselves, which I think they are now with the new agent, with Clove, and the tenacity that they have, even though they're not prepping, just raw talent and success hopefully in this main event. But next, that means we have KP's player picks, and so we're gonna go ahead and drumroll reveal those as well, and they are going to be reveal Riv, Fluorescent, and Jazzykins. And like I said, KP will be popping in here and there, so we're gonna throw over to KP to explain their top 3 picks.
Yeah, so thanks for passing it over to me. But my top 3 players to keep an eye on, it's going to be Riv from Reformed, Floor from SR, and Jazzy from Passion Project. I think most of these picks are pretty self-explanatory, so jumping into the one that might catch some people by surprise is Riv from Reformed. Obviously, I was just playing with them. I got to be her teammate for, roughly 4 to 5 months, and I loved every moment of it. Like, she's funny, she's good at the game, plays a multitude of different agents, and she's really good at something I've described that Sentinel players have to do a lot, is they're having to play their own Mario Party minigame as the overarching Valorant macro game is happening, right? Like sometimes you'll be saying a call as an IGL and your Senti player is just over there just doing their whole setup, like as you're speaking. So they have to be thinking about their own shit on top of what you're calling as a leader. But Riv really gives me like, I called her like the little like Flowerful 2.0, and she massively like gives off those vibes. Brings great vibes to teams as well, and big dicks people in game. Floor, obviously, really self-explanatory. She is the face of Game Changers, superstar of GC right now. She plays a multitude of different agents as well, most notably her Jet, but she's also great at Raze, Yoru, and Neon, all the duelist roles. A lot of her games, she is going plus 20, plus 30, plus 15 minimum, and really putting Shopify just over the line in a lot of their games. And then finally, like Jazzykins from Passion Project. I've competed against Jazzy so much. I like her competitive spirit. I think she brings a lot to the teams, not only experience-wise, but also fragging power. And I'm really excited to see the Duelist IGL. Like, I know she's been doing it for a bit now, but I'm impressed every time I continue to see it. I continue to be impressed. It's a lot on the weight of one player, and I think she does a great job managing it and keeping the team steady going through the tournament. So these are my top 3. I think pretty self-explanatory for the most part, but excited to see what they bring to this tournament. But yeah, Keg, I noticed you had one similar player as my choice for your top 3 picks. Who do you got over there?
Wow, absolutely riveting results, KP. And speaking of Riv, my top player is going to be Riv because Australians are genetically programmed to be amazing at Valorant. And then for my second player, I think, well, who did I write down here? Let's see. I wrote Sonder. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Sorry, Sonder. We have Kazler, Riv, and Teddy for my top 3. Honestly, Kazler, I think Kazler's tweets have been the number one thing for me. I think she's going to be putting the most effort out of anybody in this entire tournament just because of all the Sisyphus tweets. In fact, I think they're the embodiment of Sisyphus themselves. Riv, of course, Australian. And Teddy, I think Teddy's goated. And with Clove, I think they'll be even more goated.
Valid. All right, and Callie, you're up.
Yeah, I went in a different kind of direction, but also the same direction. I went with Misu, Arya, and Animal. I'm noticing a lot of Mesos Millionaires, a lot of Reformed, and a lot of Teddy Tactics on this board here. But Misu, just because of the whole, starting with on a different team, seeing how they're gonna adjust into Reformed, starting on Misu's Cuties and the whole Decimate thing of last series. And then I'm going to skip Arya because I'm more talk about Arya, but Animal just because kind of returning to maybe competing in a more serious manner. I know she's been kind of just pugging it out and just having really good results pugging it out, but I want to see if she's going to, fully commit or not. So definitely someone to look out for. And that whole Mesos Millionaires team, definitely something to look out for as well. And then finally Arya, the sister of Ender's sister and just bringing that very unique gameplay, a lot of harbor play. I think Teddy Tactics has kind of hung their hat on, and just a very unique style of play. Definitely someone to look out for and kind of keep an eye on how their performance is, because I feel like a lot of times when they perform well, the team performs well, and then they can get some upsets in. And so those are my top 3. Just kind of people to look out for. This players definitely to look out for in main event number 2.
Amazing. We sped through that, which is great because my favorite segment actually is up next. And I got this idea from Overwatch Collegiate Plat Chat, actually, where basically they took all the players in the collegiate scene and made their own dream team drafts. So that's exactly what we're going to go into here is essentially if we could choose 5 players from any of these main event players and create a team, who would it be? The only requirements were you could have a max of 2 players from the same team. And you also had to have some sort of IGL structure, whether that was a no IGL, everyone IGL, single IGL, co-IGL. You just have to have it and explain it. So I'm up first. And as the reveal comes through, I chose Mel from Shopify, Starbound from FlyQuest Red, Kazler from Reformed, Venus from Teddy Tactics, and Power Pixel from Passion Project. And so for me, Mel's my IGL, the GOAT. I just love their ideals. I love the experience that they bring behind them, the consistency and just widespread knowledge. Starbound, again, simp, my GOAT as well. Just a really solid Sentinel pick. You saw the clip, you saw the ace, their cipher, the clutch gene unrivaled. Kazler, very similar to what Keg said, why they're a spotlight. I feel like just the energy, the confidence that they would bring. The Kazler boulder, once it's up the hill, you cannot stop it when it's careening down. It'll be in your face. Venus, I feel like a little bit of a sleeper agent. I feel like for one of the duelist picks, they would be my primary duelist here. They've been really good on the Rays pick. And just, again, really, really solid, won't take risks when they don't need to. And I look forward to seeing how they would fare, like I said, I think KP mentioned, the squad, it's their first main event. They don't have that experience. So they are with tenured players like Power Pixel, Starbound, Mel. I think it'll really help them. And then, like I said, Power Pixel, just very tenured again, very knowledgeable about team dynamics and how to balance things out. And then also, they've coached me before, and they basically taught me how to play agents like Cypher on Sunset. So they would come in as my kind of flex player. They can play Viper, they can play Breach. You've seen it as they stepped up for a Passion Project as that newer player. So yeah, that is my top five. I will say my runner-ups were like Teddy is Fluffy, Riv, Edith, and Marina, but just not enough roles meshing together. So with that, we move on to KP's roster, and it makes sense when you look at it. Riv, Fluorescent, Sonder, KP themselves, the GOAT, and Kazler. So again, with this roster reveal, we're going to throw it over to them for a few words as to why this is their dream team.
Yeah, thanks for tossing it over to me. So jumping right into my dream team draft picks. I went a little bit of the troll route here. I put myself on there kind of for the meme, but not really. I do think I could obviously still be playing in these events. I thought it'd be a funny pick. On a more serious note, if not myself, I would put Mel or Slandy on this team. When it comes to Game Changers IGLs, I have very, very incredibly high expectations, and those two are the only, to my knowledge, having played against them or with them, those are the only two, to my knowledge, that fit my standard, fit what I'm looking for in an IGL. Not only being a leader in game, but also being a leader out of game. We got Riv, Sentinel Genius, like I just said in my top 3 player picks. She's really someone you can rely on to do her own thing as you're speaking and not have to hold her hand like while playing. She's very observant of what's going on. She might not be the most talkative person during a round at all times, but she notices tendencies and does a good job calling those out when things are going wrong. For my third on the all-star team I picked here, I went between Kazler and Panini. I think both could work in this spot, and I've played with both of them, on past teams, and I think they're both monsters in their own sense. They've got fragging power, they've got the know-how, they play a number of agents on the cast, and that is really, really important because in Game Changers, we see a lot of players who are unfortunately very one-dimensional. You'll see someone, if they're a Sky player, they play Sky every map for the last 2 years. If they're a Sova player, they've played Sova every map for the last 2 years. There's not a lot of diversity right now in Game Changers, so having someone like Kazler or Panini that can flex to the Gecko, the Harbor, the Viper, the Omen, the Sky, the Sage even, really, really important to have one, if not two of those people on each squad. Floor, no brainer. I don't think I need to say more about this pick. I think anyone but Floor is throwing on a dream team if this was a fantasy league. And then final pick, I'm going with Sonder. I think she's been a little bit in a weird role on FlyQuest Red. Like, preferably, I would have her in the duelist role. However, I think with someone like Floor on the team, obviously on her current team with Dodo, with people like that on the team, Sonder does do an amazing job of playing the flash initiator role. So the Breach, Sky, Gecko, anything in that alley, she's very aggressive, very in your face, and she has the aim to back it up too. So I feel like the wombo combo of Floor and Sonder on my draft, my all-star team here is incredibly strong, and I think this roster could I don't want to jinx anything, but that roster could be winning champs. And yeah, that's what I got. And I noticed, Keg, you kind of got similar picks up in the dream team over here, huh? Why don't you explain a little bit of that?
Wow, KP, that was absolutely riveting. Speaking of Riv, these are my choices for players. It's also Riv again. And
Oh my gosh!
KP and I did these at the same exact time, and so when I saw KP put down KP, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Is this the
So-
same team in different order?
It literally looks like the same team in
Yeah,
different order.
pretty much, yeah. Look, everyone here, I think except for Flores, had IGL experience, and so when we were doing Cozy Clash, actually before Cozy Clash, I asked Sonder, like, hey, who's calling for your team? and she just told me apes together strong. So I assume everyone there is calling. So this is the structure for that this time. Everyone's just screaming at each other in the mic, and I think it's gonna be excellence.
I would love to see it. We'll see. Maybe in the future, a different universe. But Callie, I think you took a little bit different of a route. Although we'll see some reoccurring players. So show us your dream team.
Yeah, I was the fourth person to do this team, and I wanted to do it on my own, but I also didn't want to copy anyone, so I tried not to copy anybody, and then Saunders still kind of found her way into my top 5. My mom is a huge fan of Sonder, dating back to GC Champs 2021. She's like, she'll ask me like, "Is it
Sondering
Sondering
time?"
time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's always Sondering time." But so she had to make it in. But I needed another strong, initiator player, and I chose Sarah just because I feel like a little bit overshadowed by the rest of Shopify at sometimes. Everyone really likes to talk about Floor and Mel, and Noya is the queen of Denmark. And Alexis is also
The
an amazing
president, thank
player.
you very much, and get it right.
What did I say?
That you said the queen.
Queen of Denmark. The
Yeah,
president
the
of Denmark.
president.
I'm sorry.
Come on, respect on her name.
And also Noise is just amazing rifler. But I chose Sarah. I had Misu become my anchor player because I needed a little bit of firepower there as well, and I didn't really want to go with Noya for some reason. It was just I wasn't feeling it. And then I now knowing I guess that Slandy is also going to be kind of IGLing, I figured Slandy could pick up a little bit of mid rounding if Jazzy's too focused on duelisting, which is now a verb. But Jazzy's going to be the main IGL. I think I have a lot of confidence in Jazzy as a player. Having met her in Vegas, I think, was that 2 years ago now? For Spike Drop and for the second Astral Clash. Yeah, that was like 2 years ago.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
I feel so
that was a
old.
fun
and
one.
having just having a lot of confidence in her as a person and her character. I really believe that she would be a good leader for this team. And honestly, if I had to coach this team, I would make them operate off vibes because vibes are good.
Nice. We love vibes, and we love Sarah as well. That's like one fatal flaw with my roster is I didn't have really a Sova player per se, and that was like the one sacrifice I had to make in how I formatted mine. But Sarah frags for a reason. But again, that kind of brings to an end our more fun, I guess, segments, because I gotta mix things up a little bit as we keep the ball rolling, and we're
There
gonna
we go.
move into now opening match predictions. So obviously, seedings bracket's been released. We know what the head-to-head matches are, so we're gonna go through them one by one, revealing what we, as your up to speed hosts, have. And we also have a special guest as well. Rachel, our producer's very own Mayo, their cat, had some predictions to say. Maybe the best analyst of us all. We'll have to see after the fact. But our first match is actually going to be Passion Project versus Teddy Tactics, right? Seed 1 versus Seed 8. So this is our first time actually seeing this, right? We have not seen Mayo's predictions. So we're going to go ahead and roll the clip first to see what Rachel's cat had to say about this matchup.
Oh, Keg's gonna be happy.
Without a doubt. Actually,
Oh.
Keg's
goated.
gonna be very happy.
Most goated. Actually, the most goated cat I've ever seen in my life.
There's our predictions on the screen, right? KP, I, and Callie thinking Passion Project versus Keg and Mayo, the Teddy Tactics lovers here. We'll see who takes the cake. I mean, Passion Project is the #1 seed, right? Previously signed squads, previous champions. It's just a very dominant team for a reason in my mind. But Keg,
when has a
Teddy
cat ever been
Tactics?
wrong?
Yeah. I mean, have we had cat predictions in Valorant before?
I don't think a cat's ever been wrong since the beginning of time. That's why the Egyptians
It's
love
like,
them.
but is shooting 0 for 0? Is that still not never missing?
Well, yeah, you never missed.
Hmm.
Cats never miss. Have you ever seen a cat shoot a ball?
No, I can't say
Valid.
that I have.
Valid.
Yeah, I thought so.
Well.
Take that, liberal. Let's see the next
Take
one.
that, dog
Ready?
person. I'm just kidding.
Oh my goodness. I mean, those are valid points to point out, I will say. Definitely. But with that, I mean, I feel like we really can't say much because those squads haven't really gone against each other because it was so early on that Open Qualifier 1 happened and Passion Project just zipped their way into the main event. So I think we can just move on to our next one, which is a little bit closer in terms of an affair, in terms of seeding. I feel like one where there is a grounds, I should say, for an upset to occur, and that is going to be FlyQuest Red versus Solstice, which is our number 4 versus number 5 seed. And I will obviously first throw it to Rachel's cat Mayo to see what their prediction was. So Mayo, take it away.
Actually, this cat's
And,
amazing.
ooh,
Smile for the picture.
the cat's amazing.
Yeah, this
for
cat-
real.
The cat's predictions have been on point.
I feel
Sheesh,
like
Peg.
actually I might switch.
You might
Just
switch.
having talked about just the mental boom here, and I don't want to get some sort of up to speed jinx here. No up to speed guarantee
Hmm.
that we might, because this is a totally original idea. No one's ever done this before. This whole
yes, my favorite.
no one's ever done
That
this
is-
entire format before, of podcasts and predictions. So, I'm just gonna switch to avoid the guarantee that I'm gonna just now think of.
I think
But,
TSM's gonna win.
Yeah,
I mean-
no, I just think talking about the mental boom that we were talking about today, and possibly just a little bit of unconfidence, I feel like it's not too far fetched for FlyQuest to have a bad tournament, or maybe just a slow start to this tournament.
No, I completely agree. And I actually want to screen share some VLR results for you because these two teams met literally 2 weeks ago. And you'll get to see right here, right? It was FlyQuest Red versus Solstice. Yes, it was a 2-0, but when you take a look at it, it was 13-10, 13-10. So you talk about maybe a slow start, a bad series, but even just a few rounds would have made or broken this series wide open. And then also, like we said, we have Nora, Scary Shark, stepping in. And while I won't necessarily say that's an upgrade just yet until we see how they mesh with the rest of the squad, they definitely have the tenure, the experience behind them to be maybe that difference maker between this 2-0 loss to FlyQuest Red and an early upset here in main event number 2.
I honestly think if Fly just didn't have any comms at all, they'd still win 2-0.
I mean, call me
Valid.
wishy-washy, but I do think I feel confident in switching here to Solstice. I think that
Avoid the curse.
Benedict
avoid
Arnold
the curse,
had
but
ass.
I think just also I feel like it's not out of the question for them to take an early lead or just a strong start in there for in the main event, and for FlyQuest to come out of the gates a little bit slower.
Well, our next matchup to discuss is one we've actually seen before. They met in that first matchup of main event number 1, I believe it was as well. I can little fact check myself. Back when Floppers was known as Supernova Galaxy or SNG, they actually went head to head. Sorry, I'm correct. It was Series 1 main event. So I'm curious to see if maybe we'll get a similar outcome this go around or not. But first, we should take a look at our predictions, starting with Mayo. So Mayo, take it away.
Oh, come on. The cat just eats the first bowl it sees.
No, there was hesitation there. Did you see them
That was
look
the
over
first
to the
time it
SR
There was
bowl?
hesitated.
debate. There was internal debate.
No, there
That-
was. They literally
no.
looked over into the SR bowl and then went back.
No,
And
it went for what
that
was
was-
closer. It's a lazy cat.
No, Mayo was checking both bowls. Like I checked both ways
Yeah.
before I crossed the
Mayo
street.
did not
They
check
really
that bowl.
did.
Mayo saw that one bowl was closer than the other and said, "You know what? It's less steps. I'll eat this one."
You know what? But there's still no guarantee.
There's no guarantee. And they are the one that maybe has spared Shopify from a weird curse. But I, again, want to take some look at historic matches. Although it's a little bit different of a roster. Like I said, Shopify Rebellion Supernova did meet in those upper quarterfinals last main event. And it was a 2-0 in a pretty dominant fashion, to say the least. So again, KP mentioned it, if this squad is hitting hard, then it's going to be definitely not a run over like this is. I think there was also just a mental hole, again, like KP said, of facing off against a Cyan team, the previous world champions. And even when I was sitting in scrims where they were preparing for this matchup, they said, oh, we don't care about the matchup. We just don't want to reveal anything. Once we get to lowers, we try and go further. Because they understood that, like, in their mind, they didn't stand a chance. So I'm hoping maybe it'll be a little bit different of a mental now, since I don't want to say don't care, but because, number one, different players from Paul Pals, Mises Cuties in the mix, so it's not this necessarily 5-person core, but 3-person core plus that extra firepower may just be enough to stage an upset here. But otherwise, I Shopify, I think that's why we all predicted it minus Mayo. But Mayo, I mean, they also are chasing after the fishy, I guess, which kudos to Avery, because they created that fan art, and I love it.
Yeah, Mayo did VOD review. Unlucky.
I do
Unlucky.
like Fortnite,
I think Mayo likes Fortnite.
Is that where that's from? I don't play Fortnite.
Yeah.
Mayo's
That's
actually
where
my
that's
duo.
Nice. Mayo's your duo.
Mm-hmm.
What rank are they?
Fish rank. Are there ranks in
I was
Fortnite?
gonna say, don't say Mayo's better than I am.
Well,
Okay,
are you
yeah.
boxed like a fish?
We can't.
I'm boxed like a fish.
Is that the equivalent of a hard stuck? I think that is. But that does bring us to our last little prediction between Reformed GC and Solstice. Mesos Millionaires. I just copy paste error onto my tablet, guys. Very convenient here. Anyways, so yes, Reformed GC versus Mesos Millionaires. Another kind of far spaced seeding, right? We had Shopify Rebellion versus Floppers, which was 2 and 7. This is now 3 and 6. So are they a little bit closer of a matchup? But we'll start out by checking out Mayo's prediction.
This cat is so lazy.
Cats have never been wrong. A cat has never been wrong.
That's true.
I mean, they did choose the left bull once.
A
so.
cat has never been wrong.
the cat came in from the left.
I mean, I will not question how Mayo's mind has been decided, but they chose Mesos Millionaires versus me. KP and UKEG have decided to go with Reformed. I mean, it makes sense for KP to go to Reformed, their previous squad. Also, number 3 seed on a upward trend, as their very carefully detailed analytic graph entailed. So I'm not really surprised, but again, Mesos Millionaires is a team that's unpredictable. So I'm curious. Callie, I see a world where you're correct and Mayo's correct.
Cats have never been wrong. Cats have never been wrong.
Cats have never
I've
been
never
wrong.
been wrong.
Really? Are you a
You've
cat?
never been wrong.
Where are your
Famously
whiskers?
never wrong.
Hmm.
Because I never make predictions. But I think Mesos Millionaires strike me as the team that's gonna come out swinging and then just kind of say, okay, well we won one match, we can kind of hang out now. And so unfortunately, Reform might be on the receiving end of that, that sucker punch at the beginning of the tournament. But Mesos Millionaires, they might just come out the gate swinging like before the bell even rings, and then just kind of be like,
Isn't
all
that
right,
against the rules?
we're good.
I don't know. Maybe
Do
it
they
is,
care
but
about
that's a
rules?
different sport.
The cat
I know we
predicted
have
them.
I know we have esports boxing that people wanna bring into the
Dude,
esports
I was
world,
supposed to
but this
cast
is a different
that,
sport.
and they canceled that. I was so mad.
Oh yeah, I referred you for that
Oh,
too.
thank you. Yeah, it never happened.
Ah,
My dad's
that's
always
so
like,
sad.
"When's the boxing event, Max?" I'm like, "It hasn't happened in 10 months. It's not going
It's
to."
okay, one day maybe. But with our opening match predictions out of the way, we obviously have on some opposite sides of the fences, but now we must come together
Going
for
for
our
it.
last segment of the day, where we have to, choose a side of the fence, guys. We have to compromise and make our match, or our, I guess, event-wide predictions. So we're gonna shift gears into the entire bracket predictions, guys. So you can go ahead and see here's our bracket, carefully concocted and designed. The idea is green over the player or the team who wins, red over the team that loses, and then they progress or fall to the lower brackets. So we're gonna try and speed run this, guys. We can put a timer on the screen and post, and we'll
30
see how
seconds
fast we can
per
get this
pick.
done. No. All right, Passion Project versus Teddy Tax. We think
Passion.
Passion Project. Keg,
We
you're
take
muted. No, I'm joking. All right, so we got Passion Project
PP
moving
Rising.
on. We got yeah, this is PP Rising.
PP advancing.
PP advancing, you're right. And then I'm just gonna, again, my little editing skills, look at me go, guys. All
Crazy.
right. I know, I'm just so good. All right, next.
Fly.
FlyQuest Red versus Solstice. I
take Solstice.
want to say Solstice, and then I want to say FlyQuest Red goes on a bottom bracket run, guys. Hear me out.
No.
Hear me out.
No.
Cali, break the
Predictions
tie,
are
please.
working.
Hear me out.
I'm taking Solstice.
me out.
I'm taking Solstice.
Yes!
In
You're
Oh,
on
I
it,
think
Keg.
I
I
wish
think
KP
FlyQuest
was still
starts
here.
slow. I think they start slow.
I think they go on a bottom bracket run. I'm not gonna lie to you. I
You
think
call
it'll
it
be
the
very
bottom
entertaining
bracket?
to watch. Losers bracket, lower bracket,
Lower
whatever you want to
bracket.
call it.
Bottom bracket just
We got
sounds
PP,
wrong.
why not BB?
I want the
Alright,
Dom
alright.
bracket, damn it.
I have to take this off so I can copy paste it, guys. Don't worry about it. I think this is correct pairings, right? I think it's yeah. I'm
No,
pretty sure
it's
that's
not.
correct. Okay.
Oh,
Does it go over here?
Yeah, I think it's like that.
no.
Okay, I think it's like that. Okay. Anyways, Shopify. Any objectives? Objections?
No, we
All
took
right.
It's
a
definitely Shopify.
Except for it's just Shopify, guys. I mean, it's
There's a
Shopify.
ooh, voice crack. There's a world where floppers win, but it's not a very common world.
It's not a very.
It's not our world.
Likely. It's not our world. All right. Cool. Reformed versus Mesos.
Reformed.
I know you had Mesos,
I
Callie, but
have
I'm thinking
Mesos,
Reformed.
but I'll take Reformed. It's fine.
All right. Reformed. Okay.
You guys will just see. You'll see once I'm right.
Yeah, we will.
Mesos.
We will. I'm
Mhm.
sure.
You'll see.
I have to move Mesos first. We will. I see it, right? I love, like I said, Teddy. All right, cool. You want to do bottom bracket now, or let's do these two matches, and then we'll jump back up to
let's
top.
do lower bracket.
All right. I love Teddy Tactics Tag.
Teddy.
I love them to death.
Petty.
Callie,
Do
you agree with the lower bracket run?
I think FlyQuest started a lower bracket run.
I don't
Think
think
Flag
they
Quest on the
do.
lower bracket run.
I really
I
like
think they
Teddy
go
and I
on a
really
bracket
want them to
run.
win, but I unfortunately just think that in this coin flip, it's always going to land on FlyQuest.
That's not a proper coin.
Like, I think they would beat like Mesos and Floppers, but I feel like Solstice, FlyQuest, Passion Project, Shopify, I just don't think they would. That's why I had them a little bit. I wanted them higher in the power rankings initially,
They need triple
but
Elam.
just they. I agree.
They go on a crazy
Um,
lower bracket run.
Keg,
I'm
I
just
think
saying.
you said you needed KP in the FlyQuest versus Solstice.
I feel
If
like
KP was
KP's
here,
not
they would
breaking
say
the
Fly.
tie.
No. KP
They
can
would-
be
they
wrong
would say-
sometimes.
Well, I not this time. All right.
Unfortunate. That's okay. We can all be wrong
alright.
sometimes.
Yeah. Teddy Dex will
Sure,
prove us all wrong,
surely,
which I'm excited
surely.
for. All right, Floppers versus Mesos. I think Floppers also bottom bracket run, where they're the ones that eliminate Titans. To be honest.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can go with
Thoughts?
I
Floppers.
mean, yeah, I took
Thoughts?
Mesos to win their first match, but I think after their first match, I think they got one good match in them. So I think they end up
I see,
splitting
I
it.
see.
So I don't think they go through. Yeah.
All right. I wish they would make it further as well, but this is like
This is
I said,
this
it's
is the
their
main
final
event,
ride.
damn
They
it.
got to go far. Also, this should be down here. All
This is
right.
the main
Now we go
event,
back to the
damn it.
toppers. Passion Project versus Solstice.
PP.
I
I
think
take Passion
PP,
Project.
PP Rising.
advancing.
Yeah.
My PP
you
can't
got
stop
it.
rising. I need to see a doctor.
And then
That
that
sounds
goes.
like a
that goes to Solstice. I think goes to
a rematch.
Floppers.
Oh, you're right. Wait, does it?
I think they flip.
Okay, thank you.
They flip because then they don't want any possible rematches until the
Rematch,
grand
yeah.
final.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
they flip.
All right, Shopify versus Reformed. I think Shopify.
Yeah.
Do we know if Passion Project and Shopify did they go against each other in main event last time?
They did not.
Did not. Okay.
Passion lost to FlyQuest. Last main event, so they
Passion.
didn't. They placed fourth.
Okay.
Last main event, Passion Project lost to FlyQuest
Okay.
2-1 and then Paw Pals 2-1.
All right. This is where things get spicy. All right.
Reformed.
Wait. Let me. Reform versus FlyQuest. Right. It's the rematch from Open Qualifier number 3. Is this FlyQuest Red's redemption arc? I think it is.
I don't
I
think
think
so. I
it's
think it's
not.
reformed.
You don't think it is? All right. I will be the one that's like on the opposite side. I'm gonna be rooting for FlyQuest there to move on, but I will compromise with you guys here that they will be eliminated. But I think that they make the bottom bracket run all the way, or like most of the way. All right, for this one, I think I like I said, I think Floppers
Yeah, floppers.
Yeah, I'm okay
sleeper
with taking Floppers
sleeper
though, yeah.
run sleeper run.
Flop, 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 flop. Bunny bee, fuck 'em
Gonna
up.
get that 40 health or whatever it is, 50 health. I'm looking it up.
That's the wrong way. All right, cool. All right, and then wait, yeah, this is correct. Okay, I think Reform just wins.
Yeah,
Nope,
I take Reform
Floppers.
there.
think floppers.
Yep.
Nah, up 2-1. I think obviously KP, if KP was here, would side with Reformed. So
JP can be
I
wrong.
think it's just
okay.
at some point floppers run out of steam. That's all.
I agree.
But you don't think? Well, okay, no. We said FlyQuest runs out of steam.
You guys did. I didn't.
FlyQuest is like the definition of a steamboat willy locomotive.
All right. What about Passion versus Shopify?
I think Shopify.
Yeah, I guess Shopify.
Oop.
Daring
Whoops.
today, are we?
Daring today. I don't know about that,
Yeah,
Chief.
we're
All right,
we're really changing the game here.
we are. Also, I just realized that I did that. Okay. Cool. Passion Project then moves down. Look at my pro editing and skills, guys. I'm so good. All right. That means our first finalist confirmed is Shopify, which makes sense.
It's hard to. It's so hard to root, like to not root against them, but to pick against Shopify.
What do you? Okay, here. I'm gonna pause this for a second. What do you think? Do you think this is gonna be a 2-1? I feel like I
it
could see a 2-1.
Yeah.
Depends on the maps. If Bind's in the map pool, yeah.
Okay. And then here is the other point of contention, because I don't even think because Passion Project, right? They won the first event and they got eliminated really, really early by Kinetic, so they didn't get a chance to meet.
My PP does not stop rising.
I'm thinking Passion, yeah.
Yeah. The thing
Now
is,
the question
is that
here.
I think
Yeah,
it
go for
could be a 2-1 and then a 3-0 because they get the extra bans and they get to ban Bind again.
Oh, you're right. I was gonna say I would love to see a Passion Project flip, but the map advantage is just so difficult to overcome. I
That's
feel
my
like.
clip. Clip that. I think it's 2-1 in the upper final, and then I think it's 3-0 in the grands.
All right. And Keg, do you concur?
I mean, it's no Teddy tactics, but I suppose.
And with that, guys, we can smile and show how proven wrong we are afterwards. But that is our bracket prediction here.
Keg's like, I don't
you know,
stand by this.
I wouldn't stand by this, and I don't think Keg would either, because again, this is compromise, guys. Maybe,
think I got
guys, here
my way.
I'll share this with you guys, and you make yours later, and we'll just like all reply to the thread of me posting this with our individual ones, and we'll see who gets the most right, March Madness style. All right, but I think it's good compromise. I'm sure KP also would have something to say with some of the early matchups, but it is what it is, and that is our bracket, which, you know, guys, brings you up to speed, hopefully at least before main event number 2, you know, starting June 10th, which is tomorrow. So it'll be like something to look forward to right after Shanghai ends, after that new map has been announced. But
Can't wait.
I'm really looking forward to this one, guys. I am.
Yeah,
Some good competition.
I think it'll be interesting. I'd be curious to see how far Teddy Tactics make it and what they do with their trophy.
Do they get a trophy?
Yeah, is there even a trophy for
Yeah,
Game
it's a golden
Changers?
teddy bear.
Oh,
Come on,
I'll 3D
guys.
print them a teddy bear if they
What
they
is
win.
that? Is that
They get
is that a
the
Five Nights
golden
at
Freddy.
Freddy's? Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
is that
they-
the Five Nights at Freddy's reference?
Oh, good reference.
It is now. They get the golden teddy grams.
All right.
But yeah, all I can say is thank you to everybody who made this possible, right? Rachel, background, producer, behind the scenes. Kind of last minute, I was recruiting and changing things on the fly. Huge thank you to Keg, one of the first people that I brought on, and then
Yeah.
we were able to expand and combine our networks to recruit KP and Callie, so that we had a good, I feel like, viewpoint and differing experiences, differing viewpoints and opinions. I know KP, like I said, with their departure from competing, really wanted to get on their analyst arc, and this was, to me, proved I want to see them on GC main event, next main event, because they knocked it out of the park, I feel like, with some of the insights. Keg, Callie, good balance of comedy and scene knowledge, so thank you for being here, and it's been a nice last few hours of just breaking down what's been happening over the last few months.
There's
Yeah, it
always
was
a lot
fun.
Any
going on
last
in
words
GC.
from you guys? Yeah, we'll go to Keg first. Just last words, comments.
It's 1 a.m.
You know, and totally when it's being broadcasted, but that's fine.
Sure,
All right,
sure,
And
it's-
Callie.
It'd be really funny if I said hi in chat right now.
It would be.
But also, no, I really appreciate you for giving this opportunity. A lot of work over the last couple hours to get this done, but
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. This is great. This is great.
Yeah, this was fun.
I hope everyone likes my Pokemon my Pokemon merch back here. Different IP.
They're a little
but I don't
blurry,
care.
but they're great.
I know it's blurred, but that's fine. Also, Cobalion is the best Pokemon in the world, and I will stand by this until the day that I
what?
die.
I'll
My
have to have a
favorite
Pokemon episode.
It sounds like a dish.
This boy,
Valid.
the best one.
Oh, blue
Don't-
reindeer.
I will
Looks
die
like
on
a
this
goat
hill.
too.
Yeah.
Anyways, Pokemon
Santa
or
uses
not.
it.
Pokemon or not. We'll have the episode later. This was like a trial run of a concept I wanted to try out. You know, Flatchat has it for VCT. I was like, we don't have anything like that for Game Changers, and I didn't really know what kind of content I wanted to make main event because I'm not like a shorts person. I wanted to get to the nitty gritty. You know, cover both drama with information and all that balanced. But if you guys enjoyed this and want to see more of it going forward, like please let me know whether you're a player, a viewer, new to the scene, returning to the scene. It's hard to kind of gauge reception for these sort of things. So if you're in chat, thank you for being here. We appreciate you and the support that you give to the scene. And I will definitely see you in chat during main event. But that does bring the first, hopefully of many, up to speeds to a close. So thank you again to KP, Keg, and Callie, and Rachel, and Mayo, the cat. But we hope you have a great rest of your evening, and hopefully we'll see you during main event number 2.